All right. Kara, would you like to do the roll call, please?
Mr. Steinberg,
Here.
Mrs. Rorich,
Here.
Mr. White,
Here.
Mr. Lewis,
Here.
Mayor Whittington.
Here. I'd like to open it up for public comments. If there's anything that's not on the agenda, step up to the mic. You got 3 minutes. So it looks like everybody's here for something that's on the agenda then. All right. I would, moving on, look to approve the agenda, but it sounds like we have a couple last minute entries. Administrator?
Yes, Mayor and City Council, after the agenda was already put together and sent out, I had communication with 2 residents that asked for 3 items to be added to the agenda. One is to talk about prohibiting glass bottles at the park or parks, the pond at Lake Eagle Park, and then also just an update on where we're at with Regency and nuisance complaints. Thank you.
Council people, any other additions? All right, I'd look for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All right. Approval and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Approval of the minutes from the last council meeting. Any adjustments or corrections? Look for a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Consent agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to pull out of the consent agenda to discuss further? All right, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion. Second. A second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Next one on the agenda is the annual SWPP meeting and opportunities for public input.
Thank you. My name is Kelly Herfindahl. I'm an environmental scientist with ISG, here to talk about the city's MS4 program and the SWIP, here with Julie Blackburn as well. You can move to the next slide, Jen. Tiny arrows right at the bottom. One more. There we go. So the MS4 program is a municipal separate storm sewer system, and it's regulated by the EPA under their NPDES program. So cities with urbanized areas determined by the U.S. Census, that's how Eagle Lake qualifies, being close to Mankato as a metropolis. Other MS4s are determined by MPCA policy and criteria. So under the EPA program, it monitors industrial stormwater, construction stormwater, as well as municipal stormwater. And we are having this meeting because it is an annual requirement of the MS4 permit. It's also an opportunity for interested residents to learn about the city's efforts under the 6 minimum control measures, as well as to receive comments from the public on the city's stormwater program. So the problem, and the reason MS4 is a thing, is of pollution. So, you know, you have debris running through the streets, you have stormwater that's carried over the surface. The MS4 program helps regulate what is happening in cities and other regulated MS4s. So stormwater is the leading cause of pollution according to the EPA. It's rain or snow melt, flows over land, it does not infiltrate into the earth. It carries everything that it picks up, garbage, debris, fertilizer, other pollutants. I think there's sometimes a misconception that our storm drains lead to water treatment plants. That's not the case. They go straight to our rivers and our waterways. And under the MS4 permit, there are 6 minimum control measures. So the first 2 is public participation and involvement, everything including outreach and education. Number 3 is illicit discharge detection and elimination, or IDDE. 4, construction site stormwater runoff control, 5, post-construction stormwater management, and 6, pollution prevention, and then good housekeeping for municipal operations. So MCMs 1 and 2 include the annual SWIP assessment, this public meeting, and all reporting. It's an opportunity for the city to provide educational information on pet waste, illicit discharge, de-icing salts, other stormwater issues, things that are included in those seasonal newsletters that the city sends out. It also includes a public involvement activity, so there's pictures from the previous storm drain stenciling events as well as this year's Earth Day cleanup. And here's just a spreadsheet and education tracker of previous activities throughout the years, including everything that's talked about in the newsletters, our public meeting like we're having today, and then the public involvement activity. So everything gets tracked and reported to the MPCA. Under MCM 3, the IDDE, it includes the illicit discharge ordinance, other pollutant ordinances, talks about inspection procedures, emergency and enforcement response procedures. It also includes training for all field staff on IDDE recognition and reporting. And every 3 years, all program staff meet to review their responsibilities. 4 and 5, regarding construction site stormwater, talks about the erosion and sediment control ordinances, water quality volume treatment, considering infiltration for construction sites, reviewing site plans and reports of noncompliance. Also requires IDDE training. It focuses on priority inspection maps throughout the city and all structural stormwater BMPs not owned or operated by the city. And this is just a map of the wellhead protection area within the city of Eagle Lake. So the pink area is the emergency response area, so infiltration systems are prohibited in that area since drinking water is taken from that area. So MCM 6 is pollution prevention and good housekeeping. It includes mapping in an inventory of all facilities that contribute stormwater discharge. It inspects structural BMPs, documents those findings, implements BMPs to reduce stormwater discharge, implements other BMPs to reduce impacts of de-icing salt, and it also includes documenting illicit discharge investigation findings and removal activities. So the audit was performed of the city's MS4 program, and it is in compliance with all MPCA requirements. And I'll open the floor to any questions or public comment on the SWIP.
Any questions?
Could I add something, Mayor Whittington, and City Council? There was some discussion at a recent stormwater meeting that Public Works Director Andrew Hartman and Public Works Supervisor Mike Nicklay and I attended, where the PCA talked about possibly reviewing smaller MS4s such as Eagle Lake. And I think I gave you guys an update maybe a couple of meetings ago. We are still waiting to hear what their final determination is on whether or not we are going to remain in MS4 or not. So we submitted our application and we're gonna continue assuming we're in MS4 until we hear differently. But thought this might be a good time to give you guys an update on that.
Were there any findings that you guys went through on this audit that you recommend for us to start doing for this next year, right? It's yearly review, right?
Yep, everything was up to par. So.
Oh, perfect. We don't often hear that.
What's that?
We don't often hear that.
Oh.
So, perfect.
Well, we've come a long way and we appreciate all the help and support from ISG. We're in a good place now. Thank you.
That being said, we look forward to being taken off this list.
Yeah.
Any other questions, or anybody from the public have any questions about the program? All right. Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Do we need to any,
No action is
No
needed
action?
on that.
All
And then you can move on into the next item for presentation, and then we'll hear from Kelly again about stormwater in our community resilience final
all
report.
right, perfect, you again.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I will pull that up in just a moment.
And while we're waiting for that, what's the difference then between the MS4 program and this program?
So the MS4 program is technically regulated by the EPA, administered by the MPCA. This is a grant administered
Okay,
by the
perfect.
MPCA. So yeah, you're legally required for the MS4 program and then your Stormwater Community Resilience Grant.
Perfect.
Okay, so diving into this grant, we'll give an overview of the grant, and then we'll talk about the three purposes and tasks for the grant, which includes the flooding modeling, the vulnerability assessment, and then the compost site feasibility. So, the Stormwater and Community Resilience Grant is administered by the MPCA, funded by the MPCA. It's focused on planning for increased resilience with any of three focused areas under stormwater, community resilience, or wastewater. So the grant for the City of Eagle Lake focuses on vulnerability assessment with hydrologic and hydraulic modeling for future conditions, a feasibility study on design alternatives, vulnerability assessment to identify community assets at risk from extreme weather, as well as adaptation planning. So the grant was awarded last year in June, and it has three primary purposes: to understand and mitigate flood impacts identified through future climate and build-out scenarios, implement a community-wide climate vulnerability assessment to envision solutions for the community assets most at risk from the extreme weather, and evaluate the feasibility for a compost site to increase resiliency for the community and stormwater infrastructure. So under those three purposes, we have the three main tasks. So the first one is to update, or we did update, I should say, the stormwater drainage study. So we converted the existing model to an updated software, which included new development and mapped existing flooding extents. We worked with an advisory group to develop future climate scenarios and then modeled those scenarios, and we identified vulnerable infrastructure and developed mitigation plans. Under task 2, the climate and community-wide vulnerability assessment, we conducted an inventory of all public assets. We collected community and stakeholder feedback to identify any possible risks and opportunities to enhance open spaces, and we presented solutions for each site to enhance resiliency against future weather events. And then the third task was the compost site feasibility. We were looking at feasible locations to use for community yard waste, considering factors such as the floodplain, any shoreline, prevailing winds, commercial and industrial zoning, and other possible nearby uses. We conducted the feasibility study of the selected site with layout options, and then this compost facility would aid in reduced pollution to stormwater and solid waste systems while increasing access to soil amendments. So our project schedule, we launched the website and community survey last fall, as well as updated the existing city stormwater model. Over the winter, the climate and community build-out scenario models were completed. We also formed a stakeholder advisory committee. We had our first open house in March. We finished the plan draft in May and also held a second open house to review that draft plan, and then we finalized the plan in June. So for community engagement, the first thing we did was we launched the website and the survey. This was to see what community concerns were and also see what the current knowledge of residents were regarding climate change. And we did this through an online format with an interactive map. And then we held 2 open houses. So we displayed the flooding models that were created, possible locations for the compost facility, as well as the public space assessments to receive feedback from community members. And then our stakeholder committee, we had 4 meetings with 5 members. We reviewed recommendations and information, and we identified potential areas for concern and determined solutions. So the results of the community engagement website, there were 3 primary concerns that were identified. Number 1 being negative human health impacts, air quality decline, and water quality decline. And then some suggestions that were included by community members was to ensure safe drinking water, address flooding issues, and share fact-based education on climate issues. 4 themes were identified off of the results: water, climate resilience, and environmental sustainability. Residents wanted to see concerns addressed, and they showed support for solutions for that theme. They were looking to reduce impacts for stormwater management, flooding, and green infrastructure. Residents also valued the public spaces and amenities that Eagle Lake has to offer, and they wanted to seek expansion of the parks and public spaces. And there was support for sustainability for climate resilience, for waste management, and other public engagement initiatives. And now I'll turn it over to Julie to talk about the flooding modeling.
Okay, so what we had done is a few years ago, we completed what's called an XP Swim model of the city. And that model software is no longer supported. And so we converted that model over to an ICM model, integrated catchment model. And then we updated all of the information with any new developments that have been built since the original model was created. We also looked at verifying all the existing data. And then we calibrated the model, just making sure that what we were seeing as results in the model made sense with what we were experiencing on the landscape. And so we had done some drone flights last year when there was the flooding experienced in the city, and we used kind of the extents of flooding that we saw in the drone flights to calibrate the model as far as where was the flooding occurring and how long was that flooding occurring. We have a whole bunch of data that was included. It is very up to date, very technical. We also got landowner testimony, worked on some site visits just to make sure what we were seeing was actually what was represented in the model. And then we looked at proposed models, scenarios. And so some of the key things on this were we wanted to model future climate conditions. So we worked with a group of people that are very knowledgeable about climate change and developed kind of an anticipation of future climate and rain event intensities, which it turns out that, so we modeled to 2050, and our current precipitation patterns compared to 2050 basically increase the rain intensity about 8%. And along with that, so we looked at future flooding just on the basis of changing rainfall intensity, but we also modeled as if the city was fully built out according to all of the zoning that's in place. So we wanted to basically demonstrate a worst case scenario 50 years in the future so that you can start planning now for the type of storage that you might need or stormwater holding that you might need to reduce potential future impacts. And so what we have here is a map of the existing 100-year floods. You can see the areas in red are the high flood duration severity. Most of those are thankfully not where there's any buildings, no critical infrastructure, but there are certainly some areas that are at risk for critical infrastructure. But most of the residential and business areas are not in flooding areas, although we know that there's certain pockets and residences that do experience impacts from flooding. This is the full build-out scenario with climate change over 100 years. More severity, still not a lot of residences that are impacted, no businesses impacted, but we see a longer duration of those flood impacts. And if you look at the southern part, actually past the city limits, where that road often overtops, that's one of the areas we looked at. We looked at really the western portion of the city where there's a lot of flooding that takes place and major retention of those floodwaters, as well as rapid movement of those floodwaters from that the western portion to the southwestern portion of the city. So the solutions that we came up with, we had three potential solutions. We looked at a number of different ideas, but really brought forward just three recommendations. One of them is a wetland to the west of the city. It's partially within city limits, partially in Blue Earth County limits, but creating about a 50-acre wetland. It would be a restored wetland. It was originally a wetland, but has since been drained and is used for agricultural purposes. The second recommendation was to raise that County Road 27 south of town in order to reduce overtopping, provide for safe vehicular traffic, and also increase the storage of that wetland in the south area. The third recommendation is actually south of Eagle Park, and it is to meander a stream. It doesn't provide a lot of flood reduction benefits, but what it does do is slows down the flow to reduce the erosivity and the amount of flooding rate that happens downstream. So we did some mock-ups, and these are not concepts that are ready to develop into engineering plans. They certainly need more refinement, but this would be looking at the landscape, what kind of a wetland footprint would be on the west end of town, the requirements for that. Just as a note, we did send the draft report to the county engineer, county planning and zoning, county solid waste, the SWCD, and a few other folks just to get their comments. Blue Earth County Planning and Zoning got back to us right away and said that they have been eyeing this for restoration for a long time. They were very excited about this coming forward as a recommendation, and have already started thinking about how do they work to secure funding to do that kind of a thing. So this is the solution that provides overall the most impact to reducing flooding within the city. The second solution, this is raising County Road 27. It would provide for more storage in that wetland area, but also on the extreme flood events, it would increase the flow then through that culvert downstream. So there's multiple benefits there, but again, for safety purposes, having that road be accessible in those flooding events would be a prime safety concern. And then the third solution is just meandering that stream, again, to slow the flow, reduce the erosivity of those flows. We also believe that if this was to take place, the city could probably extend maybe some of the park features, trails down into this area, and provide some additional benefits to the community. Do you want to take over from here? Or you want me? Okay. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kelly.
So I'll talk about the vulnerability assessments that were completed. So first, we looked at possible vulnerable populations within the city of Eagle Lake. Being that Eagle Lake is a smaller town, there's not great available data. Most of it's based on census blocks and census tracts. So we took what we had to see how demographic characteristics are distributed throughout the community. So on the map, blue is most resilient within the community, with pink being least resilient. And so this map was based on age, income, and race within the community. So we assessed all 7 public assets for the city of Eagle Lake, as you can see on this map here. And this is what we assessed. So I know it's hard to read, but the criteria we assessed included: are there accessible amenities in the park? Is there accessible parking? Are there areas of seating? Is there shelter? Is there shade? Is there drinking water? Any tree canopy cover? Are there native species, invasive species? And then after we completed the assessment of all public spaces, we ranked them on a scale of 1 to 3. So 1 meaning it does not have this amenity. 2, it has this to some degree, but this amenity needs improvement. And 3, it does have this amenity. So Lake Eagle Park had the highest resilience score with an average of 2.58, and then the fire department and community garden area had the lowest resilience score of 1.5. So this is just showing what the recommendations look like within the plan, using Eagle Lake Park as the example. So on the left we have the high priority, on the right the low priority, and like Julie said, these aren't full concepts, just suggestions of what you guys could do for the parks. And then showing the resiliency score here. So one of the high priorities, based off of community feedback from the open houses and things, was to resurface the trail, looking to add a drinking fountain on the park's south side, and some other priority things could be adding lighting along the trail, monitoring tree health, and like pulling weeds and things like that. Other strategies we looked at to mitigate vulnerabilities included like other open spaces, bicycle and pedestrian planning, looking to add a possible food forest, also including resilient design and development practices, including reflective or light colored roofs or green roofs, paving materials, development patterns. So those are just other recommendations that the group came up with. So with the compost facility, we were talking about this at the open house. We had a couple areas identified that could have possible usage for the city, making sure that it wasn't in an environmentally sensitive area, that it wasn't in the 100-year floodplain, any wetlands. So first we were looking at located on the east side to limit odor and noise within the city. Dust conditions spread through prevailing winds from the north, northwest, or southwest. Significant screening was looked at to mitigate nuisances. Is the criteria under, like, is it zoned for industrial or commercial uses? Making sure it's not close to residences, businesses, or public areas. Is there adequate space for vehicle movements and operations for the city and for residents? And there was the preference for city-owned land or to have it located on a site where the landowner is willing to sell or lease their property. So the site selection, and you can see it's highlighted with that star. There's also the possible other two options that are shown on this map, directly northeast of that one and then east of that one. So ultimately, the current compost facility was selected based on stakeholder committee feedback and then public house feedback. So the next steps for a compost facility would be to design. That would include getting a wetland delineation, as that compost facility is currently surrounded by a wetland, possible road enhancements, looking at stormwater management, screening and perimeter controls, possible permitting for the compost facility, and then looking at what operations would be required for that site. So the days and hours of operation, compost distribution, any equipment needs and staffing, and future expansion and educational initiatives on composting. And then I'll let Julie talk about the implementation and funding for the plan.
So those were the three main areas of concern that were investigated using these grant funds. Along with that, we made recommendations, including those three priority areas: community resilience of those public assets, transforming your current compost facility that's used by Public Works to more of a public compost facility. And that's really for a couple different reasons. One of them is we know that yard waste ends up in stormwater ponds right now, and it really reduces the maintenance lifetime for those ponds, and providing a place for those yard waste to go would be one way to extend your infrastructure maintenance a little bit longer. With our recommendations, obviously those things that we covered were included in those recommendations. We also had a recommendation to develop a master parks and recreation plan. And one of the reasons why we were recommending that is because we got a lot of public comment about risk and vulnerability for lack of kind of contiguous walking trails throughout the city. There was numerous comments made about people feeling like they were at risk, or maybe it was dangerous to walk in certain areas of the city where there aren't walking trails and they're walking on roads. And then we thought if some of those additional parks were enhanced, maybe there's a way to provide linkages and more access, particularly to those vulnerable community areas. So that was one of the recommendations that came forward. We also put together this funding spreadsheet. And so we selected icons for each of the three main areas of focus of this study and developed basically a spreadsheets, multiple pages of spreadsheets of all different kinds of funding opportunities that may exist to address those priority areas in the report. So there's information in there about direct links to websites, timing, match requirements, level of effort in order to get those kinds of funds. And so we're really hoping that this report and plan is used kind of as something that can leapfrog the city into implementing some of these recommendations, providing for more community assets, and really maintaining that resilience going into the future as climate change continues to impact our infrastructure. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Anybody have questions? There's a lot of information. Excuse me. I know that I've been getting a lot of questions about the compost sites. So that would probably be a higher priority. And then talking, it's great that Blue Earth County is excited about the restoration of that site. As long as they pay for it, we'll be excited too. So, you know, we'll have to work with them, but that makes a lot of sense. So we'll have to go through that presentation.
Yeah, Mr.
So-
Mayor, that would definitely be a collaborative kind of project, especially since part of it's in the city, part of it isn't. And there's all kinds of opportunities to fund those projects. So I think that could be a really great project. We do have several copies of the entire report here. Not one for everybody, but we did put one at the entrance. And if you'd like to take a look at the report in a little bit more detail, we're circulating 3 copies to the city council.
What's our next steps then? Is this kind of project over with you guys unless we come back and say we want to follow up on some recommendations? Is that where we are?
Yes,
Okay.
we are completed with our project. The grant deadline was June 30th, and so we met that deadline and turned everything in to Jennifer.
Perfect.
We'll just, next steps, I'll just close out the grant with the reporting requirements. And this, as Julie mentioned, and Kelly, this is basically the prerequisite to be able to get future funding. You have to get a plan in place. So now we're in a good position.
Perfect. Any other questions from the council? Well, thanks for all your hard work. It looks like there's a lot of things to digest in here and more projects, more money, more fun. So, perfect. All right.
Thank you.
Perfect.
And then
Thank you.
also maybe we could acknowledge our committee members.
Oh, that's
Hopefully I
great.
don't miss anybody, but we had Ryan Wursel from the community, Nicole Davros, and Anthony White, council rep, and who else did we have? Trying to. Oh, Luke with our climate impact coordinator. So.
And you said Ryan.
Yep, Ryan Wursel too. Just wanted to mention those two, that they were involved, and we appreciate all their time too, coming to meetings, and all the people that attended the open houses too. So, thank you, ladies.
Thank
No,
you.
thank you. All right, next presentation is a request to waive double permitting fee. Do we have any of the, perfect. Can you kind of state your name and your address for us, please?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Derek Miller, and I live at 207 Falcon Run. I'm here tonight to respectfully request that double permit fee that I recently received be waived. And for what it's worth, I was fully intending on pulling a permit before I started actually building my patio. And to this date, the only work that's been done is I dug up some of the area with a shovel and used that dirt to level my lawn. I gotta find it, so I guess I'm just wanting at least more clarification on that, and if it could be waived.
I could give a little background
Yes,
too. Thank you
please.
for attending tonight's meeting. I know I corresponded, I think, with both you and your wife, so appreciate that. Just a little background for the mayor and city council. So at City Hall, we'll sometimes get notified by members of the community if there's they'll call and say, has so-and-so pulled a permit? We see activity, but we don't see a permit posted. So we did get a call on this property, and so we just sent out our standard letter. And I do appreciate they sent a picture to show what they had done. And so we sent the letter. It kind of is a little bit of a gray area. Per our code, it says no work should start without obtaining a permit first. But you know, in this situation, they didn't actually start construction per se, so it is kind of a gray area, but typically we require, you know, usually what happens is someone comes in, pulls a permit, shows us a site plan of what they're doing, and so I don't feel that the property owner did this intentional. I think that you guys are being totally transparent and honest that it was, they intended to come in. It's just the perception that we have to deal with now on the city's end because we've had other properties that have done work. They're midway through their project and, they haven't pulled a permit. And so we have issued a double fine. So we're kind of in a unique situation. But in the packet on page 86, I have just some background. And then on page 87 is a picture that the property owners had sent in. So, city staff, we don't have the authority to waive or modify permit fees, and that's why it's before the council this evening for your consideration.
Any questions from the council? Have you filled out the permit form now?
Yes.
All right, so we're kind of in good standing. Yeah, it's kind of a gray area, right? You really haven't done any construction, you've leveled the back of your lawn. Kind of.
I guess the intent, if I want to explain further, I don't want to waste anyone's time, but we weren't going to start building it until after a wedding. And I think I did this back in May, and we just got married 3 weeks ago.
Well, congratulations.
So, thank you. And so we didn't want to, I guess, buy anything until after the wedding. And I was like, well, suppose I could level the lawn. And instead of bringing in new dirt, I'm like, might as well just use what's here. That was my thought process anyways.
Any preferences on waiving or not? I'm kind of leaning towards, since we haven't done any construction, and it's basically, you're leveling the lawn, right? So I would think that my preference would be to waive the double and make sure you don't ever do this again.
I'll motion to waive the double feet.
I'll second.
We have a first and second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thanks.
Thanks for coming in. Appreciate the photo.
Now we've got a presentation from Mike Bailey.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, how are you? You have some exciting stuff for us? All right, perfect.
Lots and lots of paper. All right, so the first kind of stapled copy is what we call our internal control letter. And that just is any of our findings that we had throughout the audit. We did have the material weaknesses for proper financial statements, material audit adjustments, and segregation of duties. These have been similar in the past years, and due to the size of the city itself, we find this in all of our cities about similar size. There's no way around it, because otherwise it's just a bigger cost to you guys. So, and we did have a correction of an error this year. We proposed an adjustment to the beginning loan account cash from the unreserved fund balance, because it was recorded last year as an addition to the financials when it should have just been a reclass. The second massive staple is our governance letter, and there we talk about our responsibilities, management's responsibilities. We also have any major adjustments that we had. And again, similar in prior years, it was due to leases and also pension liabilities. Again, very similar year over year. And then we also have a copy of the adjusting journal entries that were made throughout the entire audit. You also have your lovely, massive financial statements. So feel free to kind of peruse those as it has all your disclosures, including the new GASB 101 for the compensated absences. In prior years, you guys did have a small footnote. In this one, we just have to do a little bit more testing due to new government standards. It's all the fun. Thankfully, Carrie was amazing and helpful in getting all the information we needed that was extra compared to in prior years, so we really do appreciate her work on that. And then if we are ready for the PowerPoint presentation.
Did you send it today?
They sent it earlier, I thought. Probably Casey or Jamie.
Is that Casey with a K or?
Okay.
Did Gary forwarded it to me. I was out of the office last week, and so I'm not sure. I don't see anything from Casey in here, but if Carrie has it, she can forward it to me.
Gary should sing for us.
At least hum a few bars or something. The silence
Or
is
Lieutenant
deafening.
Mitch could play the spoons for us. I think we got some spoons in the kitchenette area.
Should put some back. Billy Joel. There you go. So while we're waiting, are there any new things, obviously, we got out of the state, ended up wherever at the end of June or whatever, end of May. So is there anything coming out of the legislative session that we have to worry about for this next year?
At
Or
this
you
time,
haven't
we
even
know
gotten to that far
our
yet?
government advisory services are actually looking into everything that's gonna be coming down the pipeline. Because a bunch of bills did just get signed, we're not really sure how it's gonna impact all of our government entities. So we do actually have a team working already through that, trying to figure out what's applicable. Not only that, but also then we also will have new GASB standards for the next few years, it sounded like, so. It's never just a,
Exciting world of accounting, right?
it is, it never stops, it's all right though. Job security.
It's not a PowerPoint, so I'll just have to, you just let me know when I'll,
Okay, no, that's fine.
unless there is a PowerPoint somewhere. Okay.
Okay, so they just sent it as a PDF. Sweet. All right, so we started our planning in December, and we did our field work starting in mid-April, and then we just issued the financials at the end of June. For the audit results, thankfully, the city once again got a clean, unmodified opinion, which is what everyone wants to have, of course. And the unmodified opinion says that you guys are following GAAP, and that there are no material misstatements for the city. And then kind of like I already talked about, we did have the four financial statement findings for the prep of the financial statements, the material audit adjustments, segregation of duties, and the correction of that error. And we found no legal compliance with the state of Minnesota. And then kind of to go into our cash and investments. So we did see an increase from last year, and we noticed that in the 10-year span that we're looking at, that there was that decrease from the 2018 to 2019, and that was due to the transfer of funds from the capital fund expenditures, the $300 transfer for the general fund. You can see your budget to actual and how your variances, so you guys for revenues actually came in over budget, so that's good. It's more money for you guys. However, your expenditures did have a slight increase over budget, but overall you had a positive net position change, which is something I know the city has always strived to have. So we're ending with a fund balance of $3.93 million for the general fund. And on that note, having that positive fund balance contributes to a favorable bond rating. produces investment income and provides a source of working capital to meet your cash flow needs, and offers a cushion for unexpected expenditures in case there is revenue shortfalls. There are 5 fund balance categories. Not every government client that we have utilizes every single one, but this is just more for informational on how the non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned balances are. And on this slide, we have for the total fund balances of the general fund. The increase in the yellow is actually that committed fund. I know a couple board meetings ago there was that increase that was talked about and you guys approved. And so that is what that yellow is the committed. We are now up to essentially almost $2.1 million in committed funds for the city to use for your capital projects. And then recommendations regarding fund balances. The State of Minnesota Office of the State Auditor, at the end of the year, local governments must maintain an unrestricted fund balance in their general fund, about 35 to 50%. And you guys are exceeding that, so that as well. And also, as the Government Finance Officers Association at year-end, the local governments maintain an unrestricted fund balance of no less than 5 to 10% of operating expenses. The city itself has a policy to strive to maintain a minimum unassigned general fund balance of 50% of the annual budget.
Could I ask you a question, if that's okay, Mayor and City
yes.
Council? So we have been trending that we're exceeding what's required. If we have projects that come up, you know, that we need to do, is it recommended that we draw down that general fund balance, or is there like at some point, would you guys kind of look at it and say, it looks like you guys maybe need to kind of draw down this, or are we carrying too large of a balance? And we don't have to talk about it tonight, it's just something I was thinking about as we have, you know, different things that come up. And
Probably should at least talk about that as we go into budget, to see if we need to draw that down to kind of smooth out some of the,
yeah,
Well, I can discuss
Increases.
this with that partner and then get back
Okay.
to you before the month end.
okay,
Just so that way we know from a standpoint of which fund maybe, if it's coming out of the committed fund or unassigned, just knowing where
okay,
maybe those funds should go depending on what type of project you guys are hoping to do.
perfect. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no,
Just wanted to
that's
ask
fine.
you before I forgot.
Questions are good. All right. Oh, so did we have the unrestricted? So here we have the unrestricted fund balance, and the unrestricted also includes the unassigned and the committed as well. And as you guys can see, you have had great results year over year. And the city as it stands right now, you have, if you had no revenues at all, you guys could operate for 1.5 years. So it's definitely a very good plus side. Not every city can say the same, so.
is there a standard level that we should be at 1.5 or 1, or is it just kind of wherever the,
It varies.
okay,
I can't say it. I mean, every city's different with how certain projects come up all of a sudden, or like the flooding, major events that no one's ever going to think about to be like, oh, we need to have this in our budget.
as we talk about 100-year floods? those
Yes,
kind of things?
so
Okay.
it really varies. I've known some cities to be well under that, so then it's a cause of concern of if you don't have enough cash to go over a year, then they would call that just not very well, and we would then have to work about like a going concern, is if
Okay.
you don't have enough funds to last 12
I'll last
months.
at least 12 months, okay.
So definitely at least that 1.5 year range is a good
Is a good area to be.
range, yes.
Okay.
And so kind of to talk about some of the other funds, you have your debt service fund. There are 4 bonds that you guys still hold. You have the Go Water Revenue Note, the 2017, the 2021A, and the 2021B, all included in the amounts there. In total, debt service paid or due in 2024, the principal was $369,000 and interest was $53,000. And on this graph, you can just see the operating revenues, expenses, and incomes just from the water fund where the red line is the operating income, the blue is the operating receipts, and then your expenses are that middle green line. So still trending, now we're back trending upward for the water fund for operating income.
And something else, if it's okay if I note too, we're incurring costs on the front end for the water treatment facility project before we get the grant funding, so that's gonna make things look a little funny too.
And then on the next slide, we have the operating revenues, expenses, and income for the sanitary sewer fund. And as you can see, kind of year over year, the expenses have gone up and down compared to revenue, which has been pretty consistent year over year. This year it did look like there was an operating loss in the sewer fund.
And we are working with Shannon Sweeney, so I'm not sure we work with him and he has reviewed our rates just recently, so we should be, he works with us to make sure that we're generating enough in what we're charging people to cover our expenses, so.
Are there any big projects or anything that we did this year? I don't recall.
Trying to think if we had anything, I can't think of anything major in the sewer that we've had. That could be it, yep, so that very well could be it. We had the SCADA system and some of those other things that we paid for with grant funds, and I'm not sure how that reflects. That was that one-time grant funding. I'm not sure how that reflects, because it was probably expensed out of the sewer fund. And then we have that grant money that wouldn't have shown as a revenue. So that's probably what it was, I'm gonna guess, but.
And on the next slide, we have the year-end net position for both the water and the sanitary sewer funds. For the water fund, we did see an increase of $362,000, and the sanitary sewer, we did see the decrease of the $35,000, which was that operating loss that you saw on the previous slide. And on this slide, we have the year-end unrestricted cash and investments for the water and sanitary sewer funds. As you can see, we're definitely starting to trend back upward for the water fund, and then the sewer fund has been steadily increasing, and then hopefully those will still be increasing so you guys can have more operating cash in there.
Sorry to interrupt again, but I just want to point out, we have been working with Shannon Sweeney. I think that's why we're starting to see that we're trending in a better direction, because we have been doing annual increases each year. We haven't done an increase yet this year, but we were kind of holding off on that when we were working with him on the street and utility reconstruction project, but since we're not going to do that until 2026, I haven't gotten a recommendation to increase anything yet this year.
And then, does anyone have any other questions, concerns, comments?
That was pretty painless. Any questions from?
Would now be an okay time to give the council kind of an update on the cash balancing reconciliation, where we're at with that, or?
It'd be good if we could get an update on the process or progress
Because
of
that was
issue.
completed to be able to get the audit done.
Yes,
Yep.
that was completed in full to get the audit done. And then I know Jamie, before she had gone out on sabbatical, the partner in charge, did include the partner who's taking over any of her jobs for any inquiries. So if that is something that the city wants to look into going forward, we have that information for the Government Advisory Services Department, who did work on it, and as well as the partners in charge. So any questions can also be answered directly through them or as an intermediary. But the cash reconciliation did get done, and we are good to go now.
Perfect. And I thought I saw that there was a recommendation to how to stay on track with that.
So I was out of town last week, so I didn't have a chance, and then Jamie's gone, so we'll need to have some sort of a call and talk about, I think the recommendation that Jamie had sent over was that we should look at possibly outsourcing cash balancing or reconciliation, and I'm not sure that we're ready to do that yet, but we just kind of want to talk about and learn a little bit more about, where we're at and any ideas on how to move forward.
No, I'd like to see that, so we don't hit the same issue. So, once everybody gets back from wherever they are, I'd like to see in another couple months if something can come back. Recommendation of either outsourcing or internal controls or processes that need to be updated. That might take, might
Will do.
work on that, so perfect.
And I can definitely talk to Brian Savinger, the partner that's taking over for Jamie for the next couple months, as well as the Government Advisory Services team, to see what they want to come with and see if we can just maybe do a joint call between everybody, so that way we can have a plan kind of going forward, or what might that look like?
Because the reconciliation only went up to the end of last year, right? So
Yes, it was
Okay.
through December
through
of
December
24.
24?
Yep.
Okay.
City staff is now working to get up to speed now with that completed through the,
First half of
to
the year.
current period,
Okay.
yep. So,
Thank you.
Very good.
I think we're good.
All right.
thanks,
Unless you have
Robbie.
more paper for us.
Oh, no, I'm all papered out for today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think the next one is Chief Simpson.
I don't know if mine's as much of a presentation as it is a status update on 4324, the old #1 pumper that we set aside a couple years ago, primarily to use as a blocker. We had decided as a department to go ahead and sell that truck, 4324. So we did list it in an auction. We only had two primary bidders, and both of those fell well short of the minimum bid. And then afterwards, both of those parties expressed great interest and their willingness to meet the minimum bid. Problem is, in the meantime, in between that bid happening and them meeting with Mr. Talley just a couple of days ago, we had emergency apparatus services stop into our station. They're the ones that do all of our pump testing and everything on our trucks every year, our annual maintenance, and they found a crack on the it's where the pin goes in on the ladder itself on 4312. So there's a crack in that that's going to have to be repaired. I spoke with emergency apparatus today to try and get some type of money or some type of idea on the amount of monies that it's going to cost to make those repairs. They weren't able to give me a solid number. They don't anticipate that it would cost $20,000, but that could be a possibility. It's a time and material job that they would have to do in order to be able to do it. They have to disassemble the whole thing in order to get the hydraulic, it's the main hydraulic cylinder for lifting the aerial up itself. So they would have to be able to disassemble that. It's all aluminum, so they'd have to be able to remove the paint, grind it out, weld it up, have the welds x-rayed and recertified. So long story short is we told the prospective buyers for 4324 that they have to hold off for another month before, so we could see what we're going to do with 4312 and whether or not it actually can be feasibly repaired. So that's where we're at.
I'm not seeing the connection, sorry.
Well, we like to make sure that we maintain two pumpers in town at all
Okay.
times. And if we released 4324 and 12 was up for repairs, we
Okay.
would be at one.
Okay.
So we
Now
opted
there's
to-
the connection, thank you. Yeah. Okay.
We good?
Yeah, any questions about that?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah,
So once that other truck is it 4312, you said?
The aerial? Or
Yes.
The 24, the old truck that we were selling.
The ladder truck?
Yes, that's 4312.
Okay, so once that's completed, then to keep the process moving, would the fire department then have authorization just to go ahead and relist the pumper that you're trying to sell once we know the cost to repair and it gets repaired?
Would we need to relist? I'm not sure.
Well, so you want to kind of explain to the council what happened with the high bidder, that they said that they wanted to go above the amount, but they didn't get in before the auction closed.
Yeah, they claimed that they were trying to get it done within the last couple of seconds because nobody wants to bid too much too soon.
So that's where I think we kind of do need to go back through that process. They were willing to go higher, but like Fire Chief Vern was saying, the auction thing cut it off, and so I don't know. Were they the high bidder before, or who?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, they were both pretty close, neck and neck, and like I said, they both fell well short. The minimum bid was $10,000. Neither one of those offered over $4,000 at closing.
and then the person you talked to is a different bidder.
No, those
No.
are one of those two.
One of those two.
bidders.
See, that's where I think we need to redo it again then, I don't,
Do we need to redo it, or just reach out to those two people and say it's available now that we got our other pumper back? And say,
I don't know.
Yeah, if
I
they're
think
willing
err-
to wait until,
yeah, I don't know. I guess, do we need to or not?
Both of them are expressing interest and willing to pay that minimum, so that's what I wonder if we,
So if they're both
To be
willing to pay
fair.
the minimum, then it should go back
Go
out.
back to the
For
auction.
auction. If
I just
only
think
one
it's
was willing, then I would
cleaner.
say, here you go.
Yeah, yeah.
But if both parties are willing, then I think it needs to get reopened and put out there.
We just don't need any headaches with somebody coming back and saying that we did something.
If one
So let's
said,
just-
no, I'm not paying anymore, and the other one said, I'll pay the full 10, then that's an easy answer, sell it to me.
No, that makes sense if we got two bidders as opposed to just one. So, once we get it back.
So we'll just reject what we have right now, then when everything gets, they would have authority just to go ahead, we'll open it up again on that sale, and it's open to, it's fair game, whoever gives the highest bid. It will get even higher. So,
So in the ladder truck then, so we're just waiting for the bid, or we got a time and materials bid
it
for
would
the?
be a time and material.
Okay.
There wouldn't really be a bid on it. There's a company that EAM goes through that's basically right next door to the plant that they have, for the certified aluminum welders. It's tricky. Part of the reason why they were unable to give a real stern number was they aren't sure if there's actually damage that was done to a gusset from the stressing of the aluminum. So that's.
Is that scheduled to go then, or what's
No,
the
I held
status?
off on scheduling, but
Okay.
they did say that they could turn around in 3 weeks.
At what point is it too much? In your
That's a
opinion?
very good question. The replacement of a ladder nowadays, is quite a bit of money. To buy one brand new, like the display that we were looking at, was close to, I believe it was like 1.2 million to replace the ladder brand new.
The ladder truck or just the ladder?
The whole truck.
The whole truck,
The whole
okay.
truck. I don't know what the expense would be to replacing just the ladder off of this truck. That's a very good question as far as, and that's exactly what I was wondering too. So that'll be in continued conversation between me and,
Well, I just don't wanna spend 20 grand on a $10,000 truck.
I agree.
I think the point also is that truck is the next one to be replaced. So if we get the same scenario where we're trying to sell that one, we'll stick 10 or 20 grand in, let's look at what the options.
Problem is if you don't put that in there, you're not gonna be able to give it away. Yeah.
So that's the next truck, but when is that scheduled? 1.5 million is not in my schedule right now.
It's, I think we have, I would have
Is
to.
that
look at the
26 or
exact
27?
numbers. I wasn't, planning on speaking on the,
Well, we'll put you on the
CIP for everything, but
Okay, no.
it's, I don't know where we're at. It's coming soon. So, when we're doing the budget, we'll be going over that more. But I know we're not close to the 1.8, 1.2, so. I think we're upwards of 8.
So we got a conundrum, right? So if we don't fix it, it's worthless.
It is.
Even on the resale value, it's zero. So we'd have to make some investment. And we know that we're at least, I would think we're at least a year out or so to make a decision on. We have to find out, what we got in reserve. You guys have been reserving funds for that for a while. So, like you said, are we at 800 or are we at 500, in that reserve bucket for that? So does it make sense for us to move forward with fixing the ladder now, knowing that we're gonna have to use this truck for at least another 12 to 18 to 24 months?
Can you remind us too, because I thought Trent said once we decide to purchase, it was a year out or something too, right? If we are doing new?
Yes, if we're doing new.
Okay,
yes,
so
the
now we're
build-out
talking
is well over a year.
24 to 36 months out for delivery, even if we pull the trigger in 18 months. So it makes sense to get kind of an idea, like you said, you know, we don't want to spend $100,000 on a $10,000 truck. So how do we want to move forward as a council? That would make sense to have that coverage, because, you know, we do have some high structures that we need to cover.
As I did speak with Lance, from EAM and then also, Jeremiah, they're more anticipating somewhere around the 10 mark rather than 20, but I thought if I was gonna mix me the numbers, I would not undersell it.
No, that's not good.
So is a issue like this caused from just normal wear and tear? Is it recklessness or what?
It would have to be normal wear and tear. I don't know. The ladder hasn't been used in any extreme situations to have it be like this, to have for anything that we would have done to have caused this, so it has to be just stress with age.
So how do we get this truck back in service for the next 3 years?
Yes, that'd be
That's the question.
We have to go forward with this repair. Everything else on the truck passed the inspection, just not that crack on the ladder.
Yeah, so I think we have to move forward. Do we have funds in maintenance or anything within the fire department to cover the 20, or where does that have to come out of?
Probably, they have to come out of capital outlay because of the sheer volume of it. But, I mean, obviously, there's money in their capital outlay, over $1 million, but you just have to do a little shifting around of funds, so. Oops, wrong one.
So how do we want to word this? Do we want to give kind of a go ahead up to 20, or when do we want them to come back to say that's too much?
Until they start
Until
going,
they start,
right?
right.
I mean, if it's time and materials,
Right,
That's correct, yeah.
unless there can be like a not to exceed amount, but
You're in the middle
yeah,
of
they
it.
got the whole thing pulled apart and they hit their not to exceed
so it's
mark.
fixed or
and then
fixed,
Here you go.
fixed or not fixed.
I can give you an update just on the year-to-date financials for what the fire department has in repairs and maintenance remaining, and it looks like there is, let's see, we budgeted $33,750, there's $29,336 left, so. But that's just out of the fire department budget. Obviously, they have their capital outlay that we could dip into if need be.
Are there other repairs and maintenance items that you guys are expecting to have come up that you haven't yet?
There's the roof of the fire station that we've had repaired a couple times. There was another repair that was in this month's bills. It was only $500, but the whole roof up there just is the roof on this building. The vinyl on the roof is beyond its life. It's over 20 years old. They, as you know by the warranty on this roof, they got up to 10 years and said, oh, you're on your own, and we're at 20. So that's going to have to be redone too. I don't anticipate going for the full re-roof. That would be way too much money. When I spoke with the Garland Company, is the company that I've had come do the last 2 repairs, they said that there is a repair that they could do. Instead of tearing everything off and completely redoing it, they would cut around the edges, add additional material, replace the rock that they had to move back, redo some of the gutter downspouts that are on there because they are not really, I don't know if compliant is the word, they're not designed properly. There should be a sandwich of materials on both sides in order to ensure that the water goes into the downspout and out. There is no sandwiching membrane on the bottom side. So that's what led to the last leaks, which drained down into the electrical room, into the fire station. Luckily, that didn't do any damages to anything electrical in there, but that repair that they were talking about there was approximately $10,000 for that roof repair. Other than that, there is some repairs that would need to be done, depending upon negotiations. With 4324, there is a couple of items on that do need to be repaired. So like I said, that'll be in negotiations with them as far as do we take that off of their bid price or how we work that out. Other than that, there's some talk of the parking lot that needs to be redone. That's been in the works for quite a while. As far as other maintenance things go, I think that's about the extent of what I anticipate.
Has all the equipment been inspected for the year?
It has, yes. Yes. Everything else, like I
Everything
said,
is
everything
good.
else passed
Okay.
except for
For that?
cracking the ladder and the things on 24 that need to be repaired.
The 24 ones have to be replaced before you can sell it at auction, or if you're selling it at auction, it's an as-is thing.
It's as is, and yeah, we could always, of course, we would disclose any.
Yeah, you'd want to
anything
disclose,
wrong with
yeah.
it, But, it could be negotiated as far as off the cost, or if we're just selling as is, so either way, I don't know that we would have to spend that money on the truck.
I propose that it gets disclosed and take it off the, whatever. That way that we're not moving cash or moving checks. Okay, so I'd look for a motion to fix the ladder truck, I guess. It's kind of an interesting motion, isn't it?
I mean, it needs done, so I'll motion
So
to.
Nick's the first, and I got a second.
I'll second.
All right, we got Garrett as a second. Any other discussions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, you have one more thing.
Yes,
Yep.
I'll let Brady come up and handle that.
Perfect.
He's been on top of it.
Perfect.
Well, from our one presentation, I thought I heard like 3 point some million, and so can we get a new station and ladder truck? She made me explain.
No.
5 million, but that's not how it works, so. Yeah, so I was coming here today to talk about the gun raffle fundraiser. I know we talked, I think Jennifer reached out to legal, they said, we're gonna be going that, but council maybe wanted to hear, I guess, what the plan is.
Yes,
Is that fair for the most part?
Perfect.
So we're basically, everyone around here and stuff does, everywhere up north, and everyone does a gun raffle and stuff. So Cleveland did one recently, St. Clair did one, pretty much every city does one. Lee Center does one every year, so reached out to younger Gunworks in Lee Center, the kind of newer licensor, and so they do it with Lee Center. They've done it for 3 or 4 years now with them. Basically just say, here's how much money we want to give you, get us X amount of guns. So right now I asked the department, we've tabled this for probably 8 or 9 months, and now everyone's approved, like, let's go with this and stuff like that. So we basically approved for at least $10,000 to put together a list of 10, 12 guns, or whatever. So we give it to Gunworks. They basically gave me a mock-up of here's 10 guns. I told them let's get a couple ARs, some handguns, that kind of stuff. And then let's do a raffle basically in 3 months at the Eagles Nest. That's where our vendors and stuff are gambling, so we do it there. Dave said, yep, go ahead, whenever you want to do it. We're thinking that hopefully Tater Days week, we can start that, our pancake breakfast, we have a table there as well. So basically us firemen are gonna be the ones selling all of these raffles, $20 a piece, each ticket. And then, so right now the budget's like $10,500. We sell all the tickets. You guys can do the math out of $20,000. We make some pretty good money out of it if we sell all the tickets. But so what we basically do is that we're talking about setting it up for like end of September, which would be pretty much the start of Fire Prevention Week as well. What we do is we go to the Nest. The vendor could come there if he wants, but if he doesn't want to, that's fine. He has 10 or 12 little metal credit cards basically. It says which gun you want. It's say raffle number 1, whatever. It basically says the vendor number. It says our gambling number on there and stuff like that.
and then you're pulling it out right there in front of everyone, so they're not pre-winners and stuff, and it takes about an hour and 15 minutes maybe. You know, do one every 10 minutes and stuff like that, gets people up there. You don't have to be present to win and stuff like that, so. We even said as a department, we wouldn't have our department members playing or immediate family members, to be honest, hopefully no one wins, to be honest, so. That's kind of where we're at right now, we're trying to figure out other ways to, you know, make revenue and stuff for this. Clearly here's some of the things that we need in our departments, like that, so, be somewhere around, you know, if it goes well, we get $9 grand in our pockets, so.
Might have to sell a lot more tickets. Vern just spent 20 grand.
We might have to ask, 2,000 tickets or something, that's fine, so.
No, so it's all gonna be one time, it's not gonna be parsed out over a couple
No,
months?
and we talked about too, you know, a lot of places do calendars, right? You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, you do the hockey association does,
Yeah.
you know, throughout that, that'd be maybe a 5-year goal if we want to, if it does very well. We even talked about doing a bingo. Cleveland did this, and they did, a one-time bingo night for guns and stuff like that. You know, you to buy a seat, it's $100 up there and stuff, and then to get bingo cards is another $5 each and stuff, just to win, you know, 5 guns during bingo or something like that. So, that'd be something for the future and stuff, but this is pretty simple, small scale right now. One of our department members' wives works at Taylor, so we'd go for them for ticketing and get all the tickets through them and stuff, so.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? Did you want to talk about the grant quick or no?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
So I know you said that we needed a resolution on that, maybe?
So once we get the check, then we'll do a resolution, but why don't you give them an update? That sounds good. Oh, did you? Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah, for you, huh?
That was in the consent agenda.
For the pipeline
Yeah.
grant, but why don't you just
Yeah.
let the council know?
So we got, Spencer and I kind of do our grants and stuff, so we got to order, them being a pipeline grant, $5,000 for green bin extrication. So we have a quote for that, and so we'll probably get, the city and Cary, we'll send them our, electronic accounting information. They'll send it to us, and then hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll have new green bin extrication gear, for that. So we've been kind of looking to do that for a while, so.
It'd be great to have it by fall.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep up the great work on the grants, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, new business. Number 1, the EDA recommendation.
Great. Mayor and City Council, the EDA, which is the Eagle Lake Economic Development Authority, recently met and talked about developing a promotional video to showcase the city of Eagle Lake as a vibrant, welcoming, and forward-thinking community. And just to kind of tout it as an ideal place to live, raise a family, retire, or start a business. So this initiative would be part of the EDA's efforts to attract new residents, entrepreneurs, to support our existing local businesses, and then just kind of enhance Eagle Lake's visibility in the region. We'd want to try to highlight some of our key community assets, such as our parks. Might be debatable right now about our pond, but we would make sure we do any video work when it looks nice. You know, our wonderful neighborhoods that we have, our amazing elementary school, all the fun events, summer sounds, Tater Days, National Night Out, just what are, you know, try to interview some of our business owners, just to really, in a short amount of time, be able to highlight the high quality of life and opportunities that our community has to offer. So the next step in the process, EDA talked about it, is excited about it. We would issue a request for proposal, and at the meeting, we talked about sending to local colleges and universities, but since that time, I've also been contacted by a company that would be interested, a local company, in submitting a proposal as well. So we'll send it out to whoever might be interested, and hopefully get a competitive proposal back, and then the EDA would pay for the cost of the video using EDA funds. So what's before you this evening is just a recommendation from the EDA to go ahead, release a RFP for a promotional video, and we would use EDA funds for that video. And when we get the proposal back, it'll go to the EDA, they'll review, select the most cost-effective one that best meets our needs, and then make a recommendation to the council to go forward. So with that, just need a motion to authorize issuing an RFP.
And maybe it's too soon, but how much do we think this will cost?
I would say it could range depending on if we work with a college or university, but probably, I don't know if I even want to throw a dollar amount. I've worked with this in another community, so I kind of have a dollar amount in mind. I don't think it'd be anything too extravagant.
That was political or not?
I would say 10,000 or less.
I know whenever I worked at Mankato Police, they did one recently. This is like $15,000 or something like that.
Okay.
Which I thought was a lot. 10,000 is a lot, I think. Do we need a video?
I think it's good for people who don't know about your community. You can use it to promote your community and also kind of like build pride in your community and showcase what we have to offer. I think just letting people know all of the wonderful, attributes that we have in Eagle Lake, and we really need to grow our businesses and get some commercial development. So I think it all kind of goes into it together. I don't know that we're doing a good job of marketing Eagle Lake and what we have to offer, to be honest. Like if somebody looks up Eagle Lake, you go to our website, but I don't know what else you're seeing.
Well, we also have funds set aside for stuff like this.
Yes, yep.
It's one of those things where it's nice to have money, but we gotta spend it at some point too, so, I think this would be a great idea to let people know what Eagle Lake is.
We've had these ideas even since COVID of like the kids that go down and do YouTube videos. I think McCray has a YouTube channel, so we're like, okay, it'd be funny to see how, from the eyes of the kids, why our parks are why they are, or you know what I mean? Like what is exciting. Reading the RFP though, is there concern with, because I know when we talked about it before, Bethany was a great option. They have an amazing group there too. But with them out of school right now, getting a response from them by our next council meeting?
We can totally change that. Yeah,
or seeing how it goes, or
no, I kind of thought about that too, and we can work with that. I can reach out to the local colleges, if you will, and just kind of find out, is this a bad time? Should we wait until fall?
Or are they interested or not? 'Cause if they're not, then we're obviously going with several businesses that I know are very good at it too.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Does it make sense for us to hold off till the fall, till school's back in session? We're not that far.
I think it's a conversation with the universities or specifically Greg at Bethany. Are you guys interested in doing a project like this? And if they say no, then obviously we're proceeding with any of the businesses. But
Another thought too, I think something that we've struggled with in Eagle Lake, and granted, I've only been here since 2018, but our identity. I think kind of figuring what is our identity in Eagle Lake, and I think that maybe doing a video like this will help us a little bit. I think we tried to figure that out more with the strategic economic development plan, but I feel like we just need to work on how we market our community to people.
I think this video is going to pull that out because they're going to
I do
ask
too.
those questions of who, where, what, and
I think
what
of
are our answers?
one thing and Beth, you're a perfect example. You grew up in Eagle Lake, you live in Eagle Lake. There's other young people that it's super exciting that they grew up in Eagle Lake. Well, Councilmember Steinberg, for instance, your experiences and now your perspective and how it's changed over the years. I think some of those testimonials will be kind of special and persuasive.
But it'll be interesting to know what this is going to cost because I have no idea.
Yeah.
A kid's
I'm
version of it and a
tentative.
professional version are two different things.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have to accept it, so, we can let the RFP out, and then if we get something that's like, it's way over the top, then we can retake a look at that.
I think another thing you have to look at too is when you're trying to get businesses to come to your community, this would be a perfect selling point. Like, this is why you should come to our community, and, we have hardworking people here, predominantly, a bedroom community, but we have opportunities because of our close location to Mankato with our amenities. I mean, I just think there's different angles you can look at, but like you said, it comes down to the dollar amount at the end of the day, and EDA and what they want to do and what the city council wants to do. But I think it's more than just putting a video on our website. I think that there's ways we could use this.
The other question I have is your completion date, because a lot of the things you mentioned was Tater Days, Summer Sounds, National Night Out. Those all happen before the notification of award. So what's going to happen from September to December that is different than the three things you just said.
Well, I think we just have to they're gonna want pictures, stills, you know, they're not gonna be able to go to every event. That's just not possible. I don't think I mean, that's just my perspective, I guess, when I've worked with a production company in the past, they use a lot of our pictures for stills, and they went around the community, did interviews, and, you know, but I'm flexible, whatever you guys wanna do, it's fine.
I think getting it out and seeing what happens first to see what it's gonna cost and what interest there is. Doesn't hurt.
I'm not against it, I'm just, I don't know.
What does EDA have in funds?
Well, it depends. We have our revolving loan funds, and then we have our other funds that we got plenty of funds to spend on this. We haven't spent any money on doing, the role of the EDA is to promote the community. We're not, so recently we just ordered some magnets to put in our welcome to Eagle Lake bags, and that was kind of an idea, like how do we get people to, when they come to town, to know what we have available and kind of get them invested in our community. So the most recent thing with the magnets, which was under $500, it just basically is gonna have, like, save the date for Tater Days. It'll have a QR code to the notification app, and then, you know, link to our website and phone number for the sheriff's office for emergencies, non-emergencies, and then, you know, city hall number. But I think that's another thing too. When people come to town, we need to do a good job of letting people know what we have to offer here, because we do get a lot of people that live in multifamily housing, and we want to get them invested in our community and support our businesses and the school. And
One other thing too, was it last year, the list of businesses in Eagle Lake, I was like, I had no idea that's how many we had.
Right.
So, I mean, that's part of it too.
right. Absolutely, and that's another thing, not to get sidetracked here, but I'm glad you brought that up, because we have printed, so we have an updated list of our business listing, and then we printed that and put it in the welcome bags, so that when people come to town, because you're right, I was stunned when I looked at our long list of businesses, how many we do have, and letting people know so they can try to support those businesses.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve releasing the RFP.
All right, we have a first, and we have a second.
I'll second.
Garrett, second. Any other discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. The developers agreement for Fox Meadows, Phase 2.
All right, Mayor and City Council, most of you guys were around for Phase 1, but now we're heading into Phase 2 with extensions of what will be public streets. So there is a shorter version of a developer's agreement for Phase 2. This has been reviewed by the city's legal counsel. Basically, this agreement still incorporates and upholds the provisions that were established in the original development agreement for Phase 1, which ensures consistency across all phases of the project. Another thing I want to point out is that we would need an escrow agreement for Phase 2. We had an escrow agreement for Phase 1, so we would follow the same structure that we use for Phase 1, and that worked well, where the developer had to deposit, we'll go through the calculation, the required funds based on the estimate that they have, and then as the city's engineer approves the work that's being done, then we get requests for releases for escrow, and then that comes to the council and we release that money. But basically, that would just make sure that if for some reason they would default or decide not to go forward, that we don't have a road half completed. We would be able to finish that road and have that money. So next up, we've got construction plans for Phase 2, which I requested the city's engineer with Bolton & McBride Surf to be here tonight answering questions you guys might have. But I believe everything has been found to comply with applicable standards, and if not, we will work through that before we would allow them to move ahead. Phase 2 of the Fox Meadows development includes the extension of Blaze Street, Connie Street, and Maple Lane. Something that has kind of moved this along too is the sale of lots along Blaze in the single family area. So I think that's wonderful. That's what we need in Eagle Lake. I hear many times I'd like to see single family development. Well, this is perfect. We're getting, some lots moving, and to be able to keep accommodating the growth, we have to allow them to extend the infrastructure. So if you have any questions, Engineer Brian Sarf is here. Otherwise, what I'm requesting of you this evening is authorization for the mayor and myself to sign the developer's agreement and an escrow agreement for phase 2.
Yes, I have 2 questions. One is, how's the developer been so far with phase 1? He's been good to work with?
Per my conversations with Troy Schramm, the developer, very good. They've had people sign up. They've had no issues with occupancy, is what I've been told, and so it's going well, and that's a good sign. We weren't sure when this first got started how fast things were going to develop, so the fact that some of those single-family lots are selling is a good sign.
Is there plans for them to build a park at all?
So yes, there is very small areas, I mean, very basic park, and then they paid a sum of money that goes into the park fund. So if a developer, it doesn't make sense or it doesn't flow right to have a big park, then they have a little area that's dedicated. It'll basically be very simple, like a picnic table, maybe a simple swing structure, kind of whatever the city will end up wanting to put in there because it was dedicated to the city. So we have that. But otherwise, I can't remember the exact dollar amount off the top of my head, but per their phase 1 developers agreement, they did give us money for parkland that we put into our park funds, and we have that money to be able to improve however we want, other parks even. So.
Okay. So we have the option to build like a substantial park there if you want? Like, I mean, there's a lot of people in that area, and, you know, it'd be nice to have something local, like an extension of the city as opposed to just a bunch of houses with like a swing set, you know, and I don't know, it'd just be nice to have something more substantial in that area, because there's a lot of people
There's
there.
one south in Eagle Heights that's a 5-minute walk away.
The problem I think we run into is the capacity of the city to fund another park. And I think taking care of our existing parks is kind of where we were stuck before. We've got 3 parks. We can barely keep up with the 3 parks. And so we ended up asking for parkland fees in lieu of, you know, a park. Because at the end of the day, they have to, our code has a formula that that says how much land or how much money is given to the city, and that's not gonna pay for a new park unless we, you know, change our code, but it's, so. And we can tell you just on having to get wood chips for our park tomorrow, I mean, it's an ongoing, we already are getting requests on Eagle Heights to improve and change things in that park, just went in, 2-3 years ago. So it's a big expense, but. So definitely something we factor into, so that money that we get that comes in, so we have that little portion of land, and then we have the money they gave that goes into the park fund, and then the park can use that however they want to, either for that park or for something else. So.
Perfect. And Brian, was there anything engineering-wise that we need to make sure? Was there a loop or something? Did that happen in phase 1? Was there a water loop or water main loop that was happening or needs to happen in phase 2?
Yes, the water main looping down to Maple Lane, that was completed in phase 1.
Okay.
So that's done
Okay.
and everything. This one's pretty straightforward from an engineering perspective, really just extending about a block on Blaze, about a block on Connie.
Okay.
Not even doing the intersections yet, just getting up to that point, putting another temporary turnaround in for fire trucks.
Okay.
Fairly straightforward at this point. Jennifer, there might have been provisions for Maple Lane in phase 2, or I saw that in there. I don't know if it was just going to be an amendment at a later time, or how that was. Anyway,
Yeah,
there's.
before we sign the developer's agreement, let's talk to Troy. For some reason, I thought I had my notes to add Maple Lane in there, but maybe it was.
Yeah,
my mistake.
there's no.
So it's just
engineering
basic
plans at this point for
extending,
Maple Lane,
okay.
but that's, I guess, not in the current phase of work.
Yeah, that might have been my mistake. I'll double check on that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. All right,
Have
so-
they been, I know they're in, I don't know if it was in some of your emails that you sent or in the packet or somewhere, but there's been complaints of the nuisance of the tall grass specifically on the east side of Agency in front of Regency.
Yep.
And going by it every day for the last 7 years, it went, prior to this development going in, there was never any water standing in the ditch unless it was heavy rains or a lot of days. Ever since that, there is always water in that ditch, even if it hasn't rained. I understand that when developments happen, water will get moved around and stuff, but it seems like a pretty significant amount of water that's always there. Is there stuff broke? Are tiles not? And I know I've asked the question many times, but if I lived there, it would be very frustrating. So kind of putting myself in their spot, as well as just the nuisance of tall grass, and then and with that, when we do the connectivity study or the connection, will there be underground drainage and stuff that will alleviate all of that water where it's going to be a null issue?
Right, yeah, it has been a concern of Public Works, and we've been trying to figure out what the issue is. I have a hunch that we kind of know. It's not related to the pond itself, right? That water, we're kind of, from Public Works observations and what I understand, we're seeing seepage into that ditch even when the pond levels blow out at this point. We think that there might be a farm tile that might have to get reconnected and directed across the road like it did before this project, potentially.
So it was connected and got disconnected during project then?
Right, because usually those farm tiles are completely obliterated when you come in, but it seems to be active enough to be creating a nuisance is kind of our best hunch at this point. So we have a plan at least to maybe try to redirect that again, and hopefully that would solve that issue.
Is that at the city's expense, or how would we determine, like?
It's a fairly minor thing.
Okay. We like to hear that.
You gotta find it first, but after that, you know.
We have a spot where we've pinpointed that we can kind of reconnect and again, see if that's taking care of it. I know the contractor, at Schramm's expense, did come out and put a clay dam, if you will, at the outlet structure to make sure, there wasn't granular seepage through that. But it just doesn't seem like, what we're seeing is likely subsurface drainage coming through there. So I think we can try to address it.
Okay. And that's just, I'm not trying to keep being a dead horse here, but just seeing it and then knowing that after this conversation, we got another one coming up. I just don't want it to be a common thing that developers put something in and then just throw all the water onto current homeowners that are there, or onto cities' issues that cause more nuisances, so.
Is there a timeline for this fix, or?
Well, at this point, we were maybe gonna try to rope in our contractor into it. They're not showing up this year, so we haven't talked about a specific timeline to this point.
Because it has been going on for a bit, so.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. Any other questions? So look for a motion to authorize Jennifer to sign the agreement.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a first and second. We need to wait for Garrett to filter back.
We'll just note that, Councilmember Steinberg
Okay.
from
All right.
his
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Creekside.
All right, Mayor and City Council, we have the developers Justin Bauer and Justin Jackson in the audience this evening. I'll let them talk to you in a few moments. I'm just going to give you some background. The final plat for Creekside subdivision was approved in 2024, and now the developers are preparing to move forward and have expressed interest in obtaining permits to begin construction soon. So prior to the city being able to issue any permits, we need to have a signed developers agreement. We have a developers agreement, a draft one in the packet this evening. Or excuse me, I think I put it by your place this evening, hopefully, or I emailed it to you. But it's pretty standard because most of their development is within, we have stormwater, but there aren't roads running through their development, so it's definitely more simplified versus Fox Meadows, is what I'm trying to say. I'll just kind of pull out some high points. Of course, any infrastructure that would be turned over and considered public, once completed, would have to go through the same process that we, go through as far as engineering plans and specs for public improvements. grading, drainage, and erosion control plan. Any land disturbance would have to comply with our Chapter 18 Stormwater Management Ordinance. And the developer would have to obtain all necessary permits with PCA, NPDES, Department of Health. Final approval of the plat does not relieve the developer from making sure that they comply with our zoning code. So when they submit their final plans before they pull a permit, we'll just do another review for zoning code. We've got included in here park dedication, since that topic came up. So based on the calculation of what we have in code, the payment that would be in lieu of property would be $3,346. And the development isn't a big development, so there isn't room to have a park in there, and that's where they would, based on the calculation that's in code, that money would be applied towards the city's park fund, and then the city could apply it however they want, whether it's, something at Lake Eagle Park or a new park in the future. That's how that money would be used. And then, let's see what else we have in here. So those are kind of the high points, I guess. Like I said, it's a pretty simplified developers agreement because there aren't public roadways in the development. But we do have, utility infrastructure. So maybe I will turn over to either the developers to talk a little bit more about what their project consists of, just to give you guys an idea of, what's gonna be there and constructed. And then we have Brian Sarf, our engineer, as well, here to also comment on, any questions as far as plans and specs for the infrastructure. So maybe what we could do is start on kind of just what the development's gonna look like. So we've got, it's an R3, so that's how it's zoned. It's just shy of 2.5 acres. The final plat was approved in April of 2024. I believe there's gonna be 4 buildings or 8 plexes, and there'd be 6 bedrooms for each building in a 3-story building. So maybe kind of give us an idea of what that maybe will look like in garages and all that stuff. Thank you.
Hello, Justin Jackson. There are 8 flex buildings. Each unit has 2 bedrooms, 8 2-bedroom units. We may potentially put 4 total 3-bedrooms in the whole project. We haven't decided on that quite yet. There's 24 garage stalls and plenty of additional parking. Just available to answer any questions. They're the same buildings that I've done at Cornerstone or along Highway 14. Same design.
You talk parking, and I'm saying this because Fox Meadows does not seem to have enough parking, in my opinion, when you drive down those streets and there's vehicles everywhere. So can you just say what you were talking about? How many vehicles could be there and how many extra spots?
Can you go off to the left or right side of that? There should be the number of parking stalls on there. But this is actually not the most recent drawing.
Here, let's see if I can make this bigger. Oops.
There should be notes on the number of parking stalls on the side of that sheet.
Sorry.
Not on this one, I guess, not this page anyways.
Did you send me one, Justin, the most updated one? I could pull that one.
Golden Week has a complete civil plan,
Oh, okay.
that they've finalized.
So
I guess I don't need an answer now. I just don't want to have
That
the
is one of the big
mass
ones.
chaos that I see down there where now vehicles are parking down the side roads and you got that mass group of vehicles trying to leave that other area. I don't want that nightmare, and then there's
a
a
good
lot of
point.
traffic and walking traffic, and now someone gets hit or something. So it's trying
So
to make sure there's enough.
There's one stall garage per apartment or 2?
Yeah, one, I sent Jennifer an
Oh.
email, there was no photo of the focus. So,
Thank you, yep, I do have that if you want me to pull that.
so at 32 units total
Okay.
and 2 bedrooms per unit, that's 64,
Mhm.
potential. And then we had 24 garage stalls, and then on the email I sent today, it has how many parking? 48 additional, so
Okay.
48 plus the 24 is.
Right, somebody do the math, how many stalls is that per apartment? How many? Well, how many per apartment? So is that 4 stalls per apartments, like 2 garages, stalls, and 2 parking slots? Because I think
we
that's
also
what
have
I'm
to-
saying too, right? So
We also have to assume that not every garage is gonna have a vehicle in it. I would say probably half of them are gonna be piled with bikes, toys, storage.
The
Half.
ratio is a 1.12 per
I'd say
unit,
most.
or per bedroom, excuse me.
Okay. 'Cause that's my biggest concern is
Yeah, that's-
not repeating the problem we're having elsewhere. So if there's two cars in every one of these units and there's not enough stalls and they're not all parking in garages, because I don't
Nobody
think they all
parks in
will,
garages over there.
where are they parking? Are they parking on city streets? And is that
That's a
parking
very,
there?
there's a very narrow street.
And I don't know, I can't remember how much parking is allowed on that street. I guess that's just a concern that I have, like,
Yeah.
I don't have, this whole project is great, I just,
Nobody parks in their garages in that new subdivision. There's 2 in the driveway, there's 2 in the street, and for every single,
Well, we have,
Apartment.
Cornerstone, I think that was, with a similar ratio, and we
Okay.
do that, I don't know anymore, but when I did own it, there was definitely, people that use garages for parking their vehicle. We just did it one in Mankato, and similar situation, people do use, I would say, it's a small percentage that don't use the garage for parking,
Okay.
and they use it for storage.
maybe Fox Meadows is unique. 'Cause I don't
right now
think
it's a
anyone does.
unicorn, because there's nobody that I see parks in the garage. But not to say this wasn't, so I guess that would be a question, is there an opportunity in this green space to, well, I've got a different.
Well, I think if you're gonna do that, we'd have to look at, we have, lot coverage calculation requirements with hard surface, so, we'd probably have to do a variance for that if that's what the council wants to do.
I don't think there was ever a problem by the ones by 14. My in-laws lived there and I didn't.
At Cornerstone?
Yeah.
I've never seen a problem at
Yeah,
Cornerstone.
there's never been a problem there, so.
Okay,
Well, and I think the other thing is that Fox Meadows doesn't even have a parking lot. I mean, this has a
That's
parking
true.
lot.
Right.
Fox Meadows has street parking and they have driveway parking.
I think their driveway parking is hard too, because if they have 2 or 3, they can't park back to back, because people are leaving at different times.
Yeah.
So then they don't ever stack cars and things like that.
Yeah, and his
So-
garages are away from the apartments too, so that's a direct out. And then I think the parking is adequate.
okay. All right, so the other couple of questions I have, I think last time you came, we had a question, did you meet with the fire department to make sure we had all the radiuses, because you were making a few subtle changes with that?
Bolton and the engineers,
Okay.
send the fire chief
Okay, perfect.
through Jennifer to make sure the turning radius is met your largest truck.
Perfect. And I think there was a question, or maybe a hope, there would be a walking path up to one of the streets, is that, am I remembering that
I
right?
remember something about that, but I don't know if.
I think what happened was the previous proposed developer of this, area and that didn't end up following through. I
Okay.
think something he had talked about was wanting to,
Okay,
offer the city the opportunity to put in a walking path. The developer wasn't going to pay for it, but it would be nice to have it.
no, that makes sense.
So your drive-in is going to be essentially where the mailboxes are currently, right?
It's close there, but the mailbox is happening. If we ever talk to John Warner,
Yeah, this is a much different picture than the one.
Yeah.
So maybe another point, not to keep interrupting, but that maybe Brian Surf, our engineer, could talk about too, is so this area the city has had its eyes on, I know since I've been here, we worked really hard to get a utility easement. We're not successful with the previous owner, but by the development getting underway, we are able to do some water main looping work that is desperately needed to get done. And so we're working with developers that are willing to work with us. We get easements, all the stuff but Brian can talk more about that, but that's a pretty significant deal to the city.
Yep, so I guess to be clear, we won't complete the loop with this, but we will essentially complete the route for the loop. So as part of this development, to serve their water, it'll essentially extend to the property line. And towards the left part of that screen, you can see it's maybe a little hard, black and white, a little bit wider easement towards the left, bottom left part of that screen that's essentially dedicated for the continuation for the city to finish that loop at some point through the adjacent development here.
Any other questions for the developer or engineer?
I guess I have one more question, sorry to keep asking, but one thing we did talk about in our meeting was the possibility of having just a small play structure. Is that something, you know, because I know Councilmember Lewis and some other councilors have kind of echoed that, what I tried to convey to you guys too, the concern about not having a place for small children to play. And, you know, over there in that part of town, to be able to access a play area would be difficult. Is there any, like, I'm trying to think of like Breckenridge or some other developments where they have a really small play structure, just something for people to be able to use if there's, you know.
Do the birdhouses have one?
I don't know.
They do.
Because that's kind of secluded with major roads, kind of.
And it would be part of the development, not a public, you know, play park space area. It would just be something, you know, you sometimes see in developments where there's a.
My concern with that is, with Cedar Path Apartments, Marshall Apartments, it's just, you know, who utilizes the structure, who comes on your property. If it's our residents, fine, but if you're the only park, you know, I personally prefer that they choose to go to the city park and utilize those services, I guess. Just for liability purposes and keeping non-residents off the site.
Would that park be any different than what Lewis is saying with going from Fox Meadows to Eagle Heights?
So
You know,
this
like
would be a
distance-wise?
private, yep, the difference
Right,
is.
but like,
oh.
them saying, no, we're not gonna put one in, we'll give you the money, is that distance from their unit to Fraze any different than Fox Meadows to Eagle Heights?
No, I mean, they would be able to go use that park over there, yep. Sorry if I'm, but they have to pay into our park dedication fund. Sorry if I'm not answering the question or understanding, but. So, if there's no more questions, what would be needed tonight would be authorization for the mayor and I to sign the final plat, which was not signed but needs to be recorded, and then we can sign the developer's agreement.
All right, I'll look for a motion for that.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, perfect. Thank you. We'll look forward to getting that kind of area developed. Any timeline of when to start?
Tomorrow would be nice, but soon.
Soon, okay. So let's get this year? Okay, perfect.
We definitely appreciate, I know the mayor and I taught you that one day outside when you guys were leaving, but we really truly appreciate your investment in Eagle Lake, and I think it'll be great for our community, and just glad to work with you guys.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, park lighting project recommendations.
Mayor and City Council, I'll just kind of give an overview, and then I'm going to turn over to Public Works Director Hartman and let him talk a little bit more in detail. We've been talking about this for some time now, the need to improve our park lighting at the park for safety reasons, aesthetic reasons, but due to cost and lack of interest by developers, vendors or contractors, if you will, we hadn't moved this project forward. So to kind of keep it moving, the park board talked about, let's do an RFP. So we put together an RFP. Between Andrew and I, we sent it out to, might have been 4 people, I can't remember off the top of my head, but obviously 4 people for sure, might have had more that just didn't submit a proposal. But we have 4 proposals that were returned. Andrew and I talked last week about which one kind of best fits the city's needs, and I'll let him talk about that a little bit more. But in the packet, you'll see just a summary of the different proposals received and their bid amount. It sounds like everybody's kind of looking at, there's quite a bit of a lead time, so we're looking at probably a fall project. So with that, I'll turn over to Public Works Director Hartman.
Yeah, so with
with the way pricing came in, Plug is the second lowest. But I think, talking with Jennifer, we wanna go with him just because, one, he knows everything that's down there already. He's repaired all of our lights down there, so he kinda knows the electrical system. And he's kinda been the most upfront, and he's made 3 or 4 trips over here to look at it. You know, he's got time invested in it. He has made some recommendations, and part of the reason why his price might be a little higher is, so in the RFP, we had 12-foot poles, and he wants to go with 15-foot poles so that they're 12 feet out of the ground. So the lights are up high enough, you know, kids can't jump with baseball bats and things like that we've had problems with. So he's kind of, you know, that might be part of the reason why he is a little higher. And then he also is the only one that has offered a deduction with the use of the old wiring that is in the ground, which I think BLK is the only other one that actually came out here and looked. And they were like, yeah, the price will be the same whether we reuse that wire or not, so.
Any questions from the council? Garrett?
No, I was just gonna make a motion to go with Plug for the lighting project.
I'll second that motion.
First and second. Any other discussion? I do have a couple questions. So how many lights are there gonna be total?
There'll be 12 lights total.
12 lights total. Are they decorative or just poles?
They'll be like an LED, they'll be kinda like what's similar to what's down there,
Okay.
except no glass in them, and they'll be LED instead.
No glass is good.
The LED is good. LEDs are maybe too bright. Okay. We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Let's go. Next one, certification of unpaid utility charges.
All right, Mayor and City Council, we have a property at 212 Agency Street South. They had an outstanding utility balance totaling $1,514.63, which includes late fees assessed. This property had come up before they had requested the city waive these fees due to a water leak and us not being able to prove that it didn't go into the sewer. So they have not paid their bill, and at this point, because of the large amount, it's recommended that we certify it for collection with property taxes. So with that, just need a motion to authorize city staff to proceed with certifying this to Blue Earth County for collection with property taxes.
I'll make that motion.
We have a first and
Yeah, I'll make that
a
one.
Nico's second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Have they just been ignoring you guys, or what?
I guess since they're not paying it, yes. The best thing, the safest path that we can do is the more timely certification, because if for some reason it would go under foreclosure, it gets really dicey, so it's good just to get it certified to Blue Earth County, and then it'll be added to the property taxes. Whoever get that property, if it would go into that process, would have to pay that. So we get our money, so.
Number 6, agency agreement for federal funds obtained.
All right, so I am pleased to bring this back to you. I don't know if you guys recall, but probably a couple of meetings ago, I had shared with you that I had submitted a proposal for a carbon reduction grant for engineering for the pedestrian connectivity project, and I hadn't heard back, and I kind of forgot that I'd submitted it. Well, then all of a sudden we found out that we got it, but then we were kind of scrambling to figure out, can we even make this work because of the federal funding and the process that's entailed. So long story short, good news. I was able to work with Blue Earth County and with the people at MnDOT, and we're able to, with their help, get a proposal put together. So we will be moving ahead with this, and they've approved everything. So we do have a grant for $180,000 that helps offset our local portion. So basically what this is so that grant, because it's federal funds, it won't get routed directly to the city of Eagle Lake. We have to have a project sponsor, which is Blue Earth County. So basically this agreement is between Blue Earth County and the city of Eagle Lake, and it's just outlining, our responsibilities as we would do if we were the project sponsor for another agency. So it's pretty standard. Basically, just what we're responsible for as far as the engineering and paying the money that's owed for that. So we would need the mayor and myself to sign this to be able to move ahead. And then I think I also, I did include the federal participation from MnDOT for this money, so.
So with that number, what's the rest of our obligation? Is it still
This
substantial?
helps significantly. I have all the numbers, I just don't have them off the top of my head right now. So we got the large federal transportation alternatives grant, and then we had the local share between Blue Earth County and the city we had to come up with, and now that we've knocked off $180,000, it helps a lot. So I can email you that tomorrow.
No,
I just don't
that's
know off the
fine.
top of my
I
head.
just knew that there was a substantial number, it was still our obligation, so.
And when you say local, does that 180
County.
goes to both county and city,
Yep.
not just city, right?
Yeah, but
Okay.
basically, we, between us, have to come up with that money. So
Yep.
this helps both the city and the county.
Yep.
But I think this is a really good project for the city and one that I get asked about all the time. When is that gonna happen? Because of all the kids that, bike and run. And right now, we're going through the development in Fox Meadows to get back and forth, but
And we're still looking at a 26 or 27 start date?
hopefully next year,
Next year, 26?
hopefully.
Okay.
We do have to let the project in 26 and start construction,
Okay.
so for the federal funding that we got.
So have we done engineering and stuff? Because I'm still trying to figure out how this is all working, especially when you get to the corner and there's shrubs like right on the street, how you're gonna, so has all that engineering been done already? And then are these property owners knowing that, hey, guess what, you're gonna have a sidewalk right here with shrubs, where are we at that phase?
We have been in some talks with the Regency, so they know the project is coming. Engineering at this point, it's kind of just been on hold because of the federal process. It's extremely complex.
But what you have spec'd fits on that north side of 211 and east side of 26?
Yeah, assuming there's going to be some temporary or permanent easement acquired.
From the county, right? Or from Regency?
Regency.
Some Regency,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's certainly what we're trying to do. The other thing I wanted to mention too is, I don't think we've heard back, but we are waiting to hear back from the DNR.
Oh, yes,
For
that's right.
additional money,
Thank you.
and I would expect to hear that really soon, hopefully.
I think all in all, and I'll get you the numbers tomorrow, but if we can get the DNR grant too, we have done a really good job in getting grant funds for a project like this. So I would be very proud if we could get it all. I think we've done good already, so I think it's a needed project.
Do we need any formal action on that?
Yes. So would need approval to authorize myself and the mayor to sign the sponsor agreement with Blue Earth County.
I'll make that motion.
Yep. We have a first, anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Nick, a second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, number 7, request from property owner.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, where am I at? Request for
Run.
Okay, so Mayor and City Council, not too long ago, city staff identified an error in the utility billing account for a property located at 102 Sparrowhawk Circle. We look back, the account was established in 2020, and at that time it was inadvertently set up without refuse and recycling charges. That was due to an internal oversight by staff that set up the utility billing for the account. No one ever said anything to the city. And then as a result of that error, obviously we haven't been collecting refuse and recycling fees for a number of years. So when the issue was discovered, just happened to be basically the same day that utility bills were run, so city staff added it to that billing cycle. Had talked to the property owner, and the property owner acknowledged that, yep, I'm responsible for these fees, but said, I don't want to be back billed. And so the dispute that we've had ongoing now between the property or utility customer and, our billing cycle is, they feel like they're being back billed. And I think at this point, we just need to move forward and get this issue resolved. The property has paid their account in full, but is still concerned about not having sufficient time to, be made aware before. So they were basically made aware the same day that utility bills were run, and they were charged for this, and I think they felt that that was considered back billing for whatever reason.
So we found the 4.5-year discrepancy. That day the bills were going to go out, added that charge for that month. I don't see how that's going backwards.
So city staff doesn't have the authority to waive any fees, so we let them know that they were having late fees occurred. I reached out to the property owner before I went on vacation, gave them a call and just said, we kind of need to get this cleaned up because they're carrying they're not paying their late fees or not for that amount when they first started incurring late fees for not paying that, and we just need to get it resolved one way or another. So I said I was going to bring it to the council and get this taken care of. And since that time, they have paid their balance in full. But we just, when I did talk to the property owner, he said, yes, he would like the council to review this, so.
Any suggestions? Anybody? The only question I would have is, no, I think they need to pay the March. Was it for March forward? But I think the question I have is, since that was in dispute and we hadn't come to, should we waive the late fee part of that?
I think that's a fair compromise, that the March fees are still due, but because it hadn't gotten to the council until now, that the late fees occurred until then, because I think our code even spells that out, that if there's we would.
What is the fees we're talking here? I mean,
Just,
what's the dollar amount though?
Oh, I'd have to pull up my fee schedule. Carrie probably knows it.
Less than $50 a month, less than $100
I'll
a
pull up
month?
the fee
Just kind of a
schedule.
round number. Do we have a audit or checks and balance in place now to kind of?
So I asked city staff to do an internal audit and just make sure there's no other accounts. I don't know how this happened and for so long.
I'd be considering myself.
But there's no other accounts found to be set up like that.
How many new accounts get it set up on a month?
A lot.
A lot.
Well, and I say that because, the new construction, but then also people moving in and out.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I think in this time we had maybe a vacancy in staff, if I might remember right. I feel like we might have had one. I'm not sure. I don't remember, or new staff. I can't.
I was just kind of
I don't-
curious on
I didn't
just the
look.
volume.
Are you guys still waiting for me to look up the fees? I'm sorry, it's taking me a while. Oh, I could have looked up somewhere else. That would have been easier. Hold on.
Is everybody?
Okay,
good with
here
that
we go.
proposal, or- Oh, go ahead. What's the number?
So our utility, a residential water, our base fee is $7, and then we have, depending on how many gallons you use. So if it'd be 1,000 gallons, it'd be about $6, so, 13.
$15 a month.
Oh, I'm looking up refuse and recycling, not water, sorry. Okay, here we go. So refuse is $17 a month, and recycling is $5.29. So we're looking at, 23 probably dollars a month, something like that.
You're talking $23 and you got 5 years free.
Yeah, I don't see what the problem is.
I'd be pretty lucky.
Well, like I said, I don't, on the March, I think we need to stand firm on that, but since there was a question, the only question I have, and I'd go with what the council recommends, but, should we waive that late fee?
I got no problem waiving the late fee, but I do think they should be responsible for that,
Yeah, the March makes sense. We found it, we billed you, we should be good.
I think that's fair, that's.
What does our process say that we could go back?
You really can't. With utilities, if it's at the city's error, it's not recommended.
Well, I don't want to, but.
Yes, there's so many years you go back, but I wouldn't recommend it. And I'm sure the property or utility customer was probably just caught off. I guess I can kind of understand their frustration is that if you're not really paying close attention to your bill, and then you all of a sudden now find out you have to pay an extra 20, I can understand why they're a little bit upset and it just hit them quickly. But, after they've had time to think about it and realize we've had 4.5 years without it, hopefully
I think the
it
only
would
thing
be
we could have
okay.
done was followed up with a letter or something to them saying,
Doesn't
we
say,
found
did we
this
call them?
discrepancy. That's why your bill's, $23
Before they
higher.
actually got their utility bill, right, yep.
That's, I think,
But-
the only thing. So I'd look to the, how do you guys want to handle it?
I'll make a motion to waive the late fee, but charge the March bill.
I'll second that.
Any first and second? Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Selling tires now.
All right, Mayor and City Council, getting down there on the agenda items, but this item is basically just a formality to authorize a transfer of surplus police-rated tires to Blue Earth County Sheriff's Office. You guys will remember a couple years ago or a year ago when we contracted out, we sold the former squads to the sheriff's officer, worked it out with our deal. And then while the Public Works Department was cleaning the shop, they came across some tires that were for that vehicle. We have no use for them, they're police rated, so it only makes sense that they should have went with them when we sold it. But, so basically, I was just asked about this and my recommendation is just to do something formal to make sure we have, everything documented. So just need a motion to authorize the transfer of surplus police-rated tires to Blue Earth County Sheriff's Office.
I'll make that motion.
We got a first,
I'll second.
we got a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Don't burn those all up in one night, would you?
Are they brand new tires, just random?
I think they were just sitting around extra.
Do we find them when something happened down in the shop? Cleaning up? No? All right. I think this is the added piece of the agenda, glass bottles in parks.
Oh, yes. So, was contacted last week by a resident who had a concern about seeing broken glass bottles at the park. I don't know if there's anything in code because I just simply being gone, I haven't had a chance to do any research, but if not, I think what the resident was asking that we talk about this evening is, implementing some sort of a change or putting some sort of posting up at the park. And I guess just from my own experience going to different parks, I recall seeing signs. It's pretty common, no glass bottles or whatever. So I said I would pass it along. This was after the agenda was already put together. So I wanted to bring that to the council and see what your thoughts are on that.
Makes sense to me.
Is there anything else that we need to put signage up that are prohibited down there?
Yeah, I would put some signage somewhere by the entrance gates or
Okay.
near the pavilion or something. I didn't know they still make glass bottles. But yeah, it's a safety concern. It's, once one of those things gets broken and kids are running around, it's a potential hazard. So,
But is there any other things that we need to prohibit that we need to put signage up, like no motorized vehicles, that signs up, or anything like that, that we need to make sure that,
Do we have an amplified music? We have ordinance on that, correct? Or do we?
That's a great question. I don't know that we have anything about a noise ordinance.
I was approached by someone that lives near the park. They say every Sunday there's music that's played loudly, and you probably hear it yourself. And
Yep.
it's kind of they're kind of complaining about how it gets too loud. I didn't know if we had anything or if that's something we even want to mess with, but.
I don't think we have anything, and the reason I say that without looking before I say that is because in the past, people have had like a wedding in their backyard or a band in their neighborhood, and I remember looking to see if there was a noise. Couldn't find anything in there, so the only thing I could find was in our right-of-way permit, we have the hours that construction work can take place, so that maybe is something we need to look at, because if you get somebody that's being obnoxious, I mean, generally it's not a problem, but I do know what you're talking about.
are you talking more through the city or just in the parks that we need to kind of talk about?
I was thinking more just at the parks.
Just the parks, okay.
Mankato, I know they have some kind of ordinance for amplified music at the parks.
Okay.
But I just couldn't remember if we had something similar or not that.
Is that something we could take back to the park board? We are scheduled to meet this Thursday, maybe we could talk about that there, if the council's
nice
okay
if
with that, it's a great point to bring
If we're gonna
up.
put a sign up, are there any other ones that are missing that we need to put up?
Like
Okay.
a prohibited.
Right,
Great. Well, we can talk about all of these items then at the park board meeting, that sounds good.
perfect.
I think maybe to reiterate or just more posting on vehicles parking down by the pavilion. I know a lot of people go down there to utilize the playground equipment, and if they can just, once one vehicle goes down there,
Yeah,
then
it's free
you
for-
see 6 to 8. And then there's also a handicap stall that used to be painted handicap, it's not clearly visible, and I think others are using that as a handicap stall.
And I think it's been probably 2 years now, but we talked about, cleaning that bottom area up and then repainting, even if it's the white lines or yellow lines of like the no parking, and then repainting the handicap. Is that, it won't stop them per se, but.
I agree with, I'm glad that Lieutenant Gaylor brought that up and Councilmember Roach did, because I drive by the park every day to and from my house, and I notice that a lot, that vehicles are creeping closer and closer to the pavilion, and it's a safety issue too for kids on their bikes or people running, walking, here comes a vehicle. And, it's clearly marked there for authorized vehicles only, so I think it's gonna be and then just, I don't know if everybody remembers, but we had locked the gates, and then we got a lot of pushback from residents that didn't like that. So then we opened them back up again, and exactly the same thing, is going on. People are just getting closer and closer to either the softball field or.
Well, they block the path. It'd be one thing if they stayed in those couple stalls, but they block that path so that it's
You can't get
hard for
through.
those that are on bikes or walking to go around.
Another issue for the park board we should talk about.
Yeah.
For sure.
so I'm all for, if we can get 1 or 2 handicap spots down there, a spot for, authorized vehicles when you need to go down there and do maintenance and things like that, but other than that, nobody should be in that, even the size of it.
Like a loading or unloading zone maybe or something, or.
Yep.
Because
Yeah,
people
that's a
do
good suggestion
have
too, yeah.
picnics down there, they don't want to
Oh,
haul
yeah.
it. As long as they're not parking there
Some of those
permanently.
clock boxes get pretty heavy. Yeah.
And maybe that's what it is, instead of painting, just putting a couple no parking signs along that grass on that side, like what we did out here. Is that enough to get people to know, like, I don't know, some of them are gonna do it regardless.
Maybe we could ask them about that and then it's a good idea.
Okay, so you guys will take that up the park board?
Surely.
Thank you. Another one was the pond.
Yes, so Mayor and City Council, I have received comments from residents or concerns about the pond, and over the years, and I know this year, it's been especially worse. Last year was good because we had the flooding, and that seemed to do the trick, and it was a pretty nice summer. I don't know what we can do right now. I know Public Works has put in the dye, but I have kind of mixed feelings on that because I know not all of you were on the council at the time, but I know I had talked about the possibility of raking the algae, and I think everybody thought I was out of my mind. But I do think that's a possibility that we could look at getting a rake and try to rake the algae. I don't know where we dispose of it, but it is a thing, and I think it's something we should look at again. We can talk about the park board meeting, because, I mean, just when you go down there, sometimes I feel like, if I had a big rake with a big thing, I could like pull it off, and then we could get rid of it, and it'll come back again, but I think that's something we should look into.
So that's a complaint. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go
The
ahead.
complaint is the pond and how awful it looks, and
Oh.
so what I've been hearing from
Got a thick
people
green
is if,
carpet on it right now.
yeah, and what I've been hearing from multiple people is if it's not gonna look nice, you guys should just fill it in. And I think that's sad, because it would be nice to have, it's such a nice, beautiful feature when it is, you know, pretty and clean.
Stop quick. So I know we talked at the last meeting of like aeration or something to get water movement underneath. And then there was also different chemicals besides the dye you were gonna try. Have we had any progress on any of that?
So when we got the chemicals, they said call them and they'll tell us the right way how to use them. Don't follow the instructions on the, you know, on the package, you know. So they're like, you know, try and wait for a week where you can get 3 to 4 days without rain. Wow. Lo and behold, it was only a 20% chance of rain today, so we were like, oh, we'll do it this week. It's like the only week with no rain, so we did it this afternoon or this morning.
A little thunder.
Yeah, but, you know, just so that it's not getting washed out the outlet, which I don't think with this amount of rain, I don't think we'll have too big of an issue. So we'll just have to see how that works too, and that'll be the biggest, you know, if it works good and we continue to keep up on it, then maybe that's our ticket. We just haven't had time and haven't had the weather to apply it yet.
So I know there are rakes that are manual, and there's also automated things it's an algae Roomba, right? So you put it out in the lake and
The only thing with the rake is, so we almost need some sort of skimmer, because it's all the duckweed. So it has to be something that floats to catch it all and pull it in, you know, it can't be, or, you know, they have the weed rakes that you roll across the bottom and stuff, but that's not gonna do us any good. It's gotta be some sort of skimmer.
No, and I think, I've seen them, so I did do a little research last time we had this question, so they are out there, so I think we should take some time just to see what the pricing might be. Just because, yeah, it's, when you can walk across the pond, then it's kind of not good.
So I can say, to validate my, my belief that braking or something would work, I did ask Luke Drummer, our climate impact coordinator, and he did, I look back at his email he sent me here in June, I had him research it, and he agreed. He said he thinks that if we have a rake or a pool skimmer, that we would be able to remove it, and then where we put it, I don't know. But, you know, I don't know how you dispose of that or who we contact to find out the best disposal.
Compost.
Yeah, well, it's where the leaves are, in the composting. So how do we move forward, so we don't have to answer this 4 or 5 times a year?
We need to do something, because what we're doing right now is not working. So, I mean, I think it's a combination.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, the pole and.
Is that something Luke could do some research for pricing for us?
Unfortunately, he's almost done.
I wouldn't think that'd be very expensive.
But, you know, that would be something Public Works could work on, and, you know, maybe bring back something to the park board, but, yeah, we definitely can't just hope that it goes away, because it's not gonna go away. And then the picture I took today, which I think I saved, but I'm not sure, it had, does everybody know what the pond looks like right now? Yeah, it's bad.
There is no pond, it's grass.
Yeah, I
Looks
don't
like
know.
the
I was
carpet in
just,
my
I took a
grandmother's
picture today,
living
and I'm
room.
not sure if I sent it to myself or not. I was gonna pull it up and show you.
That's like the only place that's not green is where the fountain is
Yeah, so.
hitting.
That's what I mean, it's terrible. And there's all these geese out there which are just perpetuating the problem. They're spreading everything. There's a duckweed and the algae. So anyways, there's a picture if you haven't seen it. It's terrible.
There's a pond in
Right.
there? I see a nice green.
Yeah.
Is that par 3?
Yeah.
Doesn't look like a golf hole?
I guess I haven't seen it for a while. I don't remember it being that bad.
No, since I've been in Eagle Lake, I have never seen it look this bad, ever. I don't think so. I mean, Beth, you grew up in Eagle Lake, Garrett, do you think it's ever looked this bad, or?
I don't think so. I think this is the worst it's been.
I think so too. So I think, you know,
It's probably the worst, if I'm trying to recall, I mean, when they dredged it, this is probably worse than what it was before they dredged it.
when was it dredged? Do you remember?
2001.
Okay.
2.
How much did that cost to do, do you know?
I was a 5th grader. I only remember knowing about it because
It's about 300,000 now.
$300,000 to dredge it?
Dredge it.
I know they dredged the pond.
We can all go grab shovels and start digging, huh?
Get some flippers and.
Right, so let's just have Public Works, let's see what's, you know.
How much
what
are the
it is.
chemicals that we keep putting? I mean, I guess at what point are we spending money and not getting it fixed? And I know we talk different type of aeration and the cost of that, but how
We
much?
haven't done,
We just put
this
the
is the
chemicals
first time
in.
we've done that.
Yeah, so how much was the chemicals at this round? Which hopefully it helps.
I think it was like less than, it wasn't 600 or something,
Oh, so that's not
625.
bad.
672.
Okay.
Okay.
Actually, a little less than that, but this one has tax on it. Yeah, no, 600 bucks.
All right. Let's take a look at that, and then the next one was Regency.
Can I just mention something else about that? So where I was going when the auditor was here was that something that's always in my mind is that pond. We gotta do something about the pond, and that's where I was kind of going with if we have extra money. Because I do feel like this pond is a huge focal point in Eagle Lake, and if we don't address it, it's just a huge eyesore. The amount of people that use that park is incredible. So that may be a, viable project if we need to spend down.
So do we have a photo of it? Because your photo, at ground level is one thing, but when you stand up on that hill and look down and there's no water except there, I mean, do we have a photo at that point or that area? And then does your guys someone that we can say, here's the problem, give us a fix instead of try this,
We'll make sure
what's a recommendation so that if we do have surplus money, here's what we can do that will.
Yeah, so when we got this chemical that we just put in today, I sent them pictures all around the pond, dimensions of it, depths of it, and they said with the duckweed and there's one other algae that's in there that they could see in the pictures, they said, this is your best chemical, and they have all kinds of chemicals.
And then where does it dissolve? Like, where does all of it go?
I think it all just drops and just, no different than fall when it all dies off.
Yep. And how long until it starts to take effect?
Yeah, I don't know.
They didn't say how quick. Okay.
I know you guys want to wrap this up, but I just want to clarify, when we talk about like excess funds, it's not that the city is just like, has this excess amount of money. Where I'm coming from is that we're being responsible and keeping to build a fund balance, but at some point when you have needs that need to get done, and just the way it's hard to explain how budgeting works in the tax levy. Not that we are not flush with all this excess money, but where I'm coming from is we know we have needs and we need to get these needs so we don't have to burden the taxpayers when it comes time to the next budget. Could we say we are gonna take this money because this is so important to our community and then try to rebuild that money? Because like the auditor was saying, only having a year and a half reserve is not really that much money. You don't know what could happen, and when you think about how much it costs to run a city and how much these things cost. So I just want to clarify that so that everybody knows where we're at. So that's all I had with that.
No, I think it's a valuable asset that we need to see what we need to do with it. So I think getting some other options.
Okay.
Chemical might be the way to go, but it's, I don't think, since I've been on the council, I don't think we've seen any of these chemical regiments work. Now, this one might, but I know a mechanical solution will work.
I'm sure someone's gonna ask, but is it gonna harm wildlife at all? Like this chemical that we're dumping in there, gonna?
It's all supposed to be aquatic friendly.
But that's a good question, and I was gonna actually contact the DNR because now that I've learned that they've stocked our ponds with fish, that I just kind of wanted to find out that same question. So I haven't had a chance to give them, and I don't know if Andrew has a contact with the DNR, but we will reach out too, just to make sure they're aware of what we're putting in there, so. And I think the next item is Regency. I can go into that one quick too.
Perfect.
So the next item that was brought up was Regency, and the tall grass in the ditch. And so we kind of talked about that this evening. And Brian Surf, the engineer, gave us, I think hopefully some hope that we can get this issue resolved. But basically, the individual just wanted to bring it to our attention, and I said that I had talked with both, Schramm in the past, and then also with Regency, and they recently have been in contact as of today, those two parties, to try to figure something out. So just wanted to, address that person's concern. They wanted this talked about. And then as a side note, to let you know that between Public Works, law enforcement, and myself, we had a meeting previously with management at Regency. We have we're gonna have another call, I believe, tomorrow afternoon to talk about different items that, that need to be addressed and are just an eyesore and nuisance conditions for the community. So just to let you know, we're keep working on that, so.
When you talk to them, when we had the stormwater MS4 presentation today, and then I saw this come up too when I went home in between work and this meeting, they mowed most of the lots, which was great, but threw a massive amount of grass onto the street. That was probably 4 feet out onto the street in solid green. So just reminding them where it ends up or cleaning it up.
And they actually just got a letter today that said exactly that. Do not put your grass clippings in the street. Was it on Agency Street or
Nope,
what?
it was on 211 and it was right on the corner, that one that has
okay.
the shrubs there.
Thank you for pointing that out.
It was a significant amount. I mean, when it's a little bit, it's like, okay, but it was a pretty significant amount of grass.
Yep, we will let them know that that was observed. They need to clean it up.
The frustration point for me is that they think they know what the water problem is, but we're not making any progress to fix or closure, right? So is it just that Brian is having a hard time getting the parties to come to an agreement to put a shovel on the ground? Or
So I think it was waiting on, when we kind of figured out what we think the problem is, was coming into bidding and awarding bids for the street project. So we were hoping that we could just incorporate, hey, just move your mini down there for a little bit, dig this up, double check, make sure if this is what we need or not.
so when you say awarding for this next phase, or?
Nope, for our street project.
Which is now next year?
Right.
Okay.
So, now, do we want to just have somebody come in and fix it now? Or do we wait till next year and, not have the mobilization fees and things like that? But
What would the council, I think we need to do something sooner than later. Is it our responsibility, or does it get billed back to anyone, or it's our burden no matter what?
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out too from Brian Surf is, I don't remember hearing about that before. There was a tile, and that's where I was wondering who's responsible because the project has been closed out.
Well, the tile is just probably just an artifact of what that land was
Yep.
prior, right? So, the fix is either connect the tile again, or I'm assuming you can't pull it up because it's already in the development.
about it, I just know minimal. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I don't think we can push it off till next year.
It's been an issue for, well, not this last winter, but the winter before we noticed it. So in my eyes, I think it should be something that should be pushed back onto Schramm and the development, but
To me,
I
it's been
don't.
an issue since the day that all got developed, because I thought the retention pond was just too low, and it was all, or too high, and it was all going out right away, you know what I mean? But I've seen them try and weed whip, they can't even mow, and they're out there in like high boots, and just 3 of them for like 4 hours. So I don't blame them for not doing that. It would be a nuisance for any of those residents. Have any of the residents complained about it that live there? No.
I walked down there today, and yes, there's a substantial amount of water at the bottom. However, the road right away, and I guess right at the stop sign at 211 and South Agency, it's kind of become a traffic hazard. It's a little tall, so I mean, the downslope of the ditch could possibly be weed whipped for the time being. The bottom of the ditch, yeah, it's gonna be challenging. It's probably not gonna happen, but I think if we can do some type of preventative maintenance on the downslope of the ditch and the road right away, if they have the equipment, I think it would be pretty beneficial.
So at least in the meantime, knock it down to see, you can see around the corner, kind of. Yeah, I think that's the most frustrating part is, you know, we've been talking about this for 2 years now, so, and, you know, I don't want to pay for it if we don't have to. But how do we push that forward, either with Schramm or, is it Schramm or us? Is that kind of the
Or at the very least, a shared expense.
shared
where
expense?
It's been closed, and yet I think there was something that was happening at that point, but obviously it doesn't always happen overnight, so.
And I think it's been documented early enough when we first noticed it that, you know, we can go back and say, yeah, it's not a new issue. We have documentation, you know, that you had Holtmeyer come back out, try and fix it. They did not resolve the issue, and now we're into, what are we doing?
So we can document it, but before that went in, there wasn't, that ditch wasn't that wet? Before,
Not that I ever noticed.
The ditch was never that way. Now, whether we have documentation showing
Okay.
that or not are 2 different things. But it was never that way unless we had heavy rains.
right,
When I lived there,
It was always, I mean, the residents
always
mowed it.
mowed.
Up to the street, the residents mowed.
okay.
And since they can't.
And we always move to the center.
Yeah, it's just how do we proceed? Do we want to push Mr. Schramm a little bit, or have we, or can we, or should we, or?
Well,
I think maybe it's a conversation we can have with legal counsel, because, I mean, you heard what our engineer said tonight, so
That's one
I think we just need
step
to,
around there, so.
yeah. We can look into it further and then see where we need to go.
Because there's a lot of people that cross over there, right there at that corner, either car or pedestrian. If it's 4 feet tall and there's a 3-foot kid, that's not good. Okay. All right, an update on the incident? Oh, no, was there?
Just, we're gonna talk to him about ongoing stuff, like just cleaning up nuisance stuff, so just wanna let you guys know we're still working with him on
Okay.
that.
Perfect. All right, update the new drive-in,
All right, the what?
the new drive-in.
That would be great news, wouldn't it? All right, so on your council top, there should be a hard copy that I printed, which has a year-to-date revenue and expense report as of the end of June. Next item is employee
We
leave
skipped
balances.
over one. Update on the vehicle incident at the.
Oh, okay, I'm
Sorry.
sorry. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah.
Trying to
So,
get us out of here.
right?
Quickly though.
Yeah, so on your sheet that I had printed out for you, it kind of shows what all we kind of have going on. Basically, all new office equipment, epoxy flooring, replace the wall, replace the window, blinds, filing cabinets. We have one filing cabinet that has all of our water files in it that we have to figure out how we're gonna get into without trying to cut it and start a fire. So, yeah, we got all kinds of fun stuff. Like our big map filing cabinet was completely destroyed, and we spent 2 hours getting into it to get all the maps out of it without destroying paperwork and documents and things like that. Some of the maps in there are from like the 40s. So, I got 2 bids back now. We're between 75 to 95,000 for the repairs. And then right now we have our office in the shop, not in the office. So we're really tight on space. So we're gonna wait until we get all of the work done in the office before we buy our new office equipment and things like that. So from the one company that I talked to, they said that Semstone or Wells Concrete is out to about December to get a wall panel, so we might be waiting a while.
Is that who did it originally, was?
Yeah, yep. So,
Haven't put a little rebar in that this time.
oh, there's plenty.
Was there any structural damage? I mean, I know the wall, but like anything else or?
No, there's absolutely no structural damage. That wall piece wasn't a load-bearing piece or anything. There's a header above the window. On the corner, there's a solid steel beam, and then on the other side is a load-bearing panel, but.
They hit in a good spot.
Yeah, yep. So we don't have to worry about anything structurally that way. It's just a mess.
All right, we'll keep moving forward. All right, now, Jennifer.
Okay, sorry, guys. Real quick, okay, so, the packet or the handout in front of you just has year-to-date revenue expense report, employee leave balances, a copy of our community solution action plan that was distributed, at the launch that we held, in June. We had a really good turnout with that. We just wanted to, push out the message that if anybody within their networks, that was in attendance, knows of anybody that's even remotely interested in starting a childcare, whether it's in-home or in a facility, reach out. We'll put you in contact with different resources. There's some good behind-the-scenes work taking place for potential preschool and also other childcare options. So that's all good. We're fortunate to have those things taking place in our community. Next item, Highway 14 corridor study. I want to give you guys an update. So we recently had another one of our, what they call them PMTs, or project management team meetings. We had one just right before I went on vacation, and we talked about, how do we keep this moving to wrap up the Highway 14 corridor study. So just to give you a little background, kind of recap of where we've been. So there was a presentation made at the June City Council meeting. And then after that, a couple days later, we had another meeting and involved the different partners and their agencies. So we had Mayor Whittington, Councilmember Rorich, Commissioner Brunder with Blue Earth County, and different MnDOT representatives that were part of that meeting, in addition to our normal PMT. And basically, we talked about the different concepts and that were dismissed and kind of where the group was leaning. And at that point, MnDOT and Blue Earth County expressed that concepts A and D2 were not viable due to the high cost. And I'm going to pull them up on my computer so you guys can look at this. Just 1 second here. I'm going to get it here. Because I don't, unless everybody remembers, but it was a while ago now we looked at this. Okay, so they had the concept A, which would address it's hard to see, but you can just basically see where the green is, that there would be is it the high T? I'm trying to remember here. High T, yep, by the Casey's intersection, and then we'd also still have the interchange over at the
It was just an overpass, though.
overpass over by,
Church. So
getting
this
my
is the
roadways
one that
mixed up.
We kind of rejected because it would just dump tons of traffic through.
It would dump, like,
Oh, yeah, here we go.
significant traffic through Eagle Lake.
Right.
Yes. So we'd have the one full access and one partial access to Eagle Lake. The CASA 17, there'd be the underpass and be routing, less people, highest cost. And then we had concept B, which was one full access and one partial access to Eagle Lake, and then traffic rerouting through residential areas. Concept C, we had 2 accesses to the highway, no access from the south side of Highway 14 at CASA 55 and CASA 1727. Then concept D, lowest cost and highest safety according to MnDOT and the other partners. But the trade-off is that we'd lose full access at CASA 56 at Casey's intersection. So we'd basically just have, and we'd have more traffic coming through town, and we'd have a right in and right out at that intersection. And so then, let's see, where did we go with that? Okay, so we went through all that. Well, then we met then again with Councilmember Rorich, Mayor Whittington, and I at that meeting, and they talked about their preference would be concept D, which would eliminate our full access at CASA 56. We just have that right in, right out. And we raised concerns with that because of not knowing what our potential future development would look like, and limiting that and not knowing what the funding opportunities might be. And so we basically just said at that point, they were kind of pushing us to give some sort of consensus, because they argued that, well, if we don't have consensus by all of the agency partners here and have a recommendation that everybody agrees on to close out the study, then the study was basically for nothing, because you're not going to be able to, you have to have, everybody has to work together, because basically it's MnDOT's roadway. We'd have to have the county helping us, and if the county's saying they're not going to help us, it puts us in a really bad position. And then they talked about, we said, well, then what about going ahead and just going for concept A and, taking that risk of applying for funding, even though they think it's, unattainable. And they said, well, then you're just going to end up wasting years and time. And so I don't know if I'm doing a good job recapping you guys, but basically then following that meeting, I had a project management team meeting with them. And again, where they were pushing for consensus, and I said that as staff, I certainly don't feel comfortable speaking on behalf of the council at this point, that I think there's more information that is needed, because if you don't work, all these people in this project management group are either engineers or, traffics, what am I trying to say? That's what they do every day. For the rest of us, this isn't something, and looking at all these different concepts takes a lot of time and, thought. And it's our community, and at the end of the day, we live here. We have to answer to the people that, are in Eagle Lake, and we want our community to continue to grow and flourish, and to lose access at you know, CASA 56 is concerning, but then the other argument that gets pushed out, well, then what if there's another fatality, or what if there's more accidents and MnDOT just comes in and shuts it down? Then now you've lost out on, you know, opportunities to make any improvements to this area. So it's just, we're kind of stuck right now, and so we kind of arrived at consensus that we're gonna have them come back to the city council, talk to the council as a whole. It's a public meeting. If someone from the public wants to come in, we want the public, if they can't make it to the meeting, they can at least watch the meeting to see kind of, you know, the pros and cons, and, you know, have that opportunity. So that's where we're at right now. We're kind of at a sticking point where we're not in, you know, we don't have consensus on what we want to do here, because, you know, just we come from different perspectives, I think. So.
Well, I think if you look at our optimal, what we've talked about as our optimal plan would be a high T at 56 and a full interchange at 17. That would be ultimate for us, right, as a city. What the county has said in these meetings is they wouldn't support that. What they want to support is what you saw in option D, and that's the full interchange at 17 and limiting the Casey's exit to right in, right out. So that's kind of the impasse, right? Obviously, it's a couple more dollars for the ultimate one for us and things like that, so I think that's where we're sticking. But yeah, I think Beth really summed it up that, you know, we need more information from the citizens, right? So it's dollars, right? You know, the biggest concern would be if something happens, or they just, you know, we go through the plan and they just take away all access at the Casey's exit. So I think there's more to do. We're still talking about a 10-year plan. It's not something that's going to happen in 27 or 28. You know, we're still talking, you know, 2030 or better.
But it brought up if we go to right in, right out, at 56, what does that do to our business development over there that hasn't been done? You know, it's not gonna look very appealing for people to be able to go in there, or it has to be that right group. What I can say we did get out of that whole meeting when we left, was what we as a council and a city need to do better on our strategic planning and comprehensive planning going forward of, okay, if an interchange happens out on 17, where can we also add additional roads to try and divert some even inner city traffic? On the southeast side of town, can we add another road behind Fox Meadows? So that group of people, commuters, aren't all having to go agency and out. They can go, if they're wanting to get on the highway, a back road, if you will, and jump right on the highway and go. And that helps alleviate some of the pressure on Parkway or agency or other areas. So kind of looking at what could be a 30, 40, 50-year plan and have it kind of mapped out so when developments come, we can say, hey, here's what we're looking at having put in and where we would like stuff so we can work around that versus us wishing we could do something but we can't anymore because it's already taken up. But I wasn't going to speak on behalf of city residents and say, yeah, we'll cave and just go with this when I'm not sure that that's the right thing. Their argument is, well, everybody, it's not safe, people don't use it, they go to 12. Well, if you put a high T in, now you've made it safe again. And will those that don't use 56 now go back to using 56 and take some of the pressure off 12? Or all of the roundabouts? So I don't know, that's where I was not willing to make a decision on behalf of everyone here or the whole community.
No, so I think that's Monday, is that right?
Special meeting, yep.
Let's see, let me find the date
Monday
again.
at noon, right?
July 14th at noon.
Okay.
We were kind of at the mercy of all the different agencies and what worked for everybody, and so, yeah, we picked Monday at noon.
Because you've already advertised that as a meeting, right, so we can all be there?
Say what now?
The entire council can be there?
Yep,
on Monday?
yep, so I will send out an advertisement, I want to talk to you guys before we do it, but yep, I have it on, I sent you guys an invite for today, so we'll have to notice it. I guess my concern too from staff was, it is scary to be told, well, if there's another accident or, you know, we're gonna shut you down. Well, what is that threshold? I mean, what was the urgency? The study came up because, the former mayor had wanted us to do the study, so we did the study, but what if we hadn't done the study? We wouldn't be sitting here looking at the situation we're in right now. So that's where I feel like it feels like we're being pushed to hurry up and make a decision, and it's hard. It's hard to make a decision that is gonna have long-term effects on Eagle Lake.
Those space of 5 acres, like this is a decision that once it's closed, or,
Yep,
once it's done, it's done. So.
yep.
And another fear that I have is once they get approval, will they just make the change before the other interchange is open, right?
I know.
So,
So hopefully we'll get more information and feel like we, you know, as a city can feel better about, you know, where we're at with this, but, so.
well, yeah, so I think, you know, everybody that can be there should be there. Make your, you know, make your opinions known. If you can't be there, at least, you know, let Jennifer know, you know, what you're thinking, so we can bring it up.
Okay.
Through a proxy. So.
Yeah, and sorry to spend so much time on it tonight. I just want everybody to really think about it and just, you know, come, if you can come with your thoughts, questions, concerns, and, you know, this will be our opportunity to ask those questions. So thanks for your time on that. Next up is just annual drinking water report and certification, just to let you know. We sent it out to residents, or the link. We posted on our website. We did the certification form. You know, sometimes it gets confusing because of the manganese issue, but at the end of the day, our water is safe to drink. However, the manganese that we had testing, we voluntarily tested for a few years back, did have high levels for, that was not considered safe for infants or people that might be more a vulnerable population. But we do know that if people have a water softener or other filters, that it is most likely going to reduce it to safe levels, but you'd have to test in every home to find that out for sure. So next, we met probably a couple months now to talk about emergency management response guidelines update. I will get that on our agenda, those changes made for August, and get that approved. We're gonna make a good effort to get this done every year. Next item, intercity leadership visit. This is with Greater Mankato Growth. They are wanting to get cross-sector representation from the Greater Mankato area of businesses, private, nonprofit, government, faith-based, to talk about strategies for economic growth and innovation. And every few years they do a delegation. This year they're looking to go to Wichita, Kansas, be November 5th through the 7th here in 2025. And I have not previously attended one of these, but former Mayor Tim Oranger did attend, and I can't remember now off the top of my head the delegation where he went to. But they did travel, and you know, you kind of learn about different ways that, you know, we can try to bring back to our area and grow our economy. So I think the mayor should for sure go. I'd like to go. I skipped signing up for a couple conferences to make sure there's enough funding for this. And then I was talking to Ryan Vesey with Rita and Greater Mankato Growth, and he said we should really kind of hone in on childcare when we're there and ask lots of questions about that and learn about what they're doing in that area. And so I apologize, I missed Councilmember Lewis's name in here, but so basically I feel like there should be some discussion amongst council members Rorich, Steinberger, White, and Lewis as to who feels it would be best to go, because we obviously for quorum purposes wouldn't want to have more and budgetary purposes. But I had mentioned Councilmember Rorich since she's on the RCCIP and been working closely with childcare, but I would let that be decided amongst the council. So at this point, you know, I think we just kind of need to have a loose idea of if there's interest in attending, and then we'll bring back final stuff to the council for approval in August. But we're kind of looking at about $3,000 per person. I missed the planning meeting. I don't know if anybody else is able to go, but I think it's about $3,000 a person. Includes airfare, hotel, all other costs, so. And I think that's all I've got, so, yep, that's all I've got. Thank you.
All right. Council member reports. That was quick. All right. Next upcoming council meeting is August 11th. EDA is the 24th, and Park Board's the 10th. That one's coming up quick. Planning Commission's on the 21st. I would look for any other business needs to happen. All right, I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
Mayor and City Council, someone asked, and I guess we didn't clarify that, the reason the meeting is scheduled for August 11th is Mayor Whittington will be out of town for the regular August meeting, and so in the past when that's happened, we've just moved it to another meeting. I hope that, or another week, hope that works for everybody. So we'll make sure we point that out to everybody. It's August 11th. Yep. No, we've done it many times in the past, so.